Good evening. The Rio Rancho Board of Education's meeting for Monday, September 13th, 2021 is now called to order. And will all please arise for the Pledge of Allegiance and mute your microphones. Catherine Cullen will present the pledge for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you so much, Board Member Cullen. Okay, Kim, can you go ahead and take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, ma'am. President Galbraith.
Present.
Vice President Morgan. You may be joining us in a couple of minutes. Secretary Scott.
Present.
Secretary Scott.
Present.
Oh, hi, Noreen. I can just barely hear you. Board Member Cullen.
Present.
And Board Member Coleman.
Present.
And we have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kim. We'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight. We have a lot of visitors on. If you are visiting, you're welcome to go ahead and turn off your camera until we get to you when you're presenting. But we do want to thank everyone for coming on today and for being with us. We also want to welcome all those who are watching through our YouTube channel tonight. We are grateful that we have such wonderful technology and that we're able to still broadcast our meetings even in times where we can't be all together in the boardroom. So tonight we're going to go ahead and start with some introductory comments by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Visu Cleveland.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us this evening. We do have a long meeting, and so I'm going to try to just go through the highlights rather quickly, and then we can get to the business at hand. And again, I would also like to welcome all of our visitors. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. We have some commendations this evening. The first commendation is for the Rio Rancho Rotary Club for their funding of elementary school tutors. And they provide this service at several of our campuses and have actually expanded their services this year. The Dick Hillier tutoring program provides help and support for students, and they seek out the students who are not covered in any other program, students who wouldn't get any tutoring without this support. And it has made a tremendous difference in the lives of our students. It has been well received. Our staff very much appreciates the extra time and help in working with their students. Parents have reported great successes with the program in terms of their children's desire to go to school and to learn. And the students themselves have been very complimentary. And we have a lot of success stories that we can share about this particular program. I just also want to say that Rotary supports our students in many other ways and our staff. For example, this year they did a wonderful showcase of our students' art at Haynes Park, which was a wonderful event. A lot of students were able to not only show, but sell their works of art. They provided scholarships in the past, particularly in the area of nursing. And I just want to tell you, they've been doing this for a long, long time. They have been just steady supporters of our school district since the very beginning of the district. And we appreciate them so much in terms of all that they do for us. And they have been a wonderful partner, and they have contributed in so many ways. And then last, Jerry is going to introduce those who are attending this evening. And I would like you to know that Jerry Reeder has been a very active member of Rotary, a participating member who has helped with many of these projects and keeps kind of some of our issues there out front of the organization to consider for their assistance. Next slide, please. We also are going to commend our human resources staff. They have been through an incredible 18 months. It has really been an incredible task to support the needs of all of the Rio Rancho Public School staff members, but they have made a valiant effort and been very successful at doing so. They've had to manage the COVID response effort for all of the district employees, and they have come up with, in the very most difficult and trying of times, creative efforts at recruitment and retention of staff. And as you know, that's been a real challenge in times of labor shortage. And while we're not there yet, in terms of staffing all positions, we've made a lot of progress. And a lot of that is due to their hard work and the work of others as well. And then the last comment I would want to make is just this is a department that prides itself on customer service. And it tries very hard to be helpful and positive with staff. And they also do a lot of work as the liaison in working with the Rio Rancho School Employee Union. We have special guests this evening from LANL. We welcome the foundation staff. They're going to be doing about approximately 20-minute presentation for you this evening. There has been a long-standing, a very positive relationship between LANL and the Rio Rancho Public School District. And they have been just a constant voice for improving educational outcomes for children in New Mexico and always being part of the solution, as well as identifying what those challenges are. We have been very appreciative that they have always included us. They focus primarily on northern New Mexico, and we are north of Albuquerque, so we kind of qualify for being in northern New Mexico. But they have done so much for us over the years, things like science kits for elementary schools. And they're here this evening just to share some of their current initiatives and give you some information about services that they can provide to districts. So again, we welcome them and thank them for their many years of support in our district. We're going to have a report this evening on enrollment data. As you know, there was a major decline in student enrollment last year across the entire state as a result of the pandemic. And one of our biggest concerns was whether these students would return and whether we would be able to recover that enrollment this school year. So you'll be getting that information. Kim Vesley, who is an assistant to the superintendent, will present the current enrollment numbers. And I can tell you, basically, we recovered most of the loss, and we see signs of growth across the community. Everywhere you look right now, if you travel our community, you see homes under construction. And so we see growth picking up, and that's exciting and challenging all at the same time. But she will give you some information on that. And I do want to say the board's decision to provide fully virtual options for students this year is really important, and it was helpful in recovering our enrollment. And we're just so very glad that we did that and offered that option for our families. We are still a little bit lower than our peak enrollment number, but we definitely will qualify, we think, for enrollment growth this year. And the numbers, is the 40-day count. It's the first really important official count. And that's coming up in October. So we're not far from having that first actual official count. But we certainly hit a kind of a plateau, a little bit of a decline. And the Great Recession has been kind of slow to pull back out of that. But we're really gratified to see the number of students and families who have returned this year after the pandemic. You have asked for regular personnel updates, and as you'll recall, earlier this year, Mike Chavez gave you the numbers before school actually started and said that he would come back and provide an update for you in early September. And so he will do that this evening, and we'll show you where our vacancies are. We're in better shape than before, and in comparison to many other districts, and because of the efforts of HR, the HR department, things like regular job fairs of the teacher intern program and other things, we saw some vacancies, but not a large number of them. And I don't think you'll be surprised to see the areas where we do have some vacancies. Our greatest challenges continue to be finding teachers who are qualified as special education teachers, educational assistants, most of whom serve children with disabilities. Our bus drivers, our substitutes, and our custodial maintenance workers, we still are short in those areas. We will also have a report. We had a couple of board members that asked if we would come back and share what we were doing for student supports, what things we kept from last year that we put in place. And so we will be providing some information about the assistance initiatives that we are continuing on this year. There are many supports that are in place, and we have two presenters that are going to share with you a couple of different aspects to your questions. Renee Salcedo, who is the Secondary School Improvement Officer, will talk about the specific interventions. And Erin Morin, who is the Director of Assessment, will present a new tool that we have that really is going to help us be able to track student progress toward graduation. And we have a lot of new things come out, but there's nothing that's been more exciting than looking at this tool, because I think it will provide far better data than we've had before on where students are in their progression toward graduation, and will help us keep students from ever falling through the cracks. So I think you will enjoy that presentation. We are providing tutoring, credit recovery classes, again at no cost. I think that was the direction the board wanted to go with that, and other very important extended learning activities. And in addition, as I said, there is a new tool that will help us analyze student progress. You will have a joint powers agreement with the New Mexico School for the Deaf. This has been an ongoing agreement, and it's a long-standing relationship that we have. There are two schools. There's one in Albuquerque and there's one in Santa Fe. Our parents in Rio Rancho have a choice of either having their students receive all of their educational services in our district, or they can attend the New Mexico School for the Deaf. It's strictly a parent choice, and both options are provided to families, and they pick whatever option they think will serve their child's best needs. This particular agreement will be related to two students who are attending the New Mexico School for the Deaf in the
Is it just me that cut? Dr. Cleveland cut out, huh?
Yeah, you're cut out.
Oh.
You're muted, Dr.
Yeah, there you
Cleveland.
go. Yeah. You're still muted, Dr. Cleveland. We lost you just as you. I don't know. There it goes.
Okay, are we back on?
Yes, you're good.
You just lost me, right?
Say that again.
Did I just go off and on, or have you?
Yeah, it just all of a sudden you were muted. I don't know what happened. So
Yeah,
we
you were
can hear
talking
you
about
fine
the
now.
two students.
Okay. I haven't touched it, so I don't know. We are having some technical problems that we're trying to work around this evening, and I have an old-fashioned sinus drainage problem, so I'm a little bit hoarse this evening. It's just plain old-fashioned stuff, no technology. As I said, and I try to pick up, we have two students who will be attending the Albuquerque program, which is the preschool and kindergarten, and that's what this particular agreement this evening addresses. Just to kind of know what our program does look like, we have 9 students within the district with hearing impairment as their primary disability. We have 7 students with hearing impairment as their second disability. So, for example, they could be sight impaired and hearing impaired. We have 2 students who, as this agreement will allow to attend the preschool in Albuquerque. And then we have 8 students who live and reside in Rio Rancho, but attend the program for middle and high school in Santa Fe. We also have 104 students who have hearing disabilities and do receive audiology as one of their related services. And so that's really quite a large number. We really do need other audiologists, but they're very hard to find. It's very hard to find those people with that training. Most of you very well are very familiar with the grants program. We've had it in our district in the past. It is a multi-generational case management model, and it helps parenting students and their families, and it helps them to identify and overcome barriers that contribute, that overcome barriers that would keep them from being successful or their children being successful in school. It helps them achieve economic stability by having students earn their high school diploma and by improving their employability skills for the workplace, in many cases helping students find employment. It also helps them develop positive.
Oh, Dr. Cleveland, you just muted one more time.
Okay, it muted me because I didn't touch anything. I don't know why it's doing it. And it helps them develop good parenting and relationship skills, which is important to all families. And we will receive an allocation of $10,000 to support the program this year. And we have two presenters, Stephanie Moore, who's the principal at Independence, and Amy Guzzi, who is the teacher at Independence and has worked with this program, does phenomenal work there for the students and their families. There are 5 resolutions that are brought to the board this evening that were discussed and requested by you at the last meeting. We want to be sure that those resolutions reflect your ideas. We tried to take them all, consolidate them. Kim wordsmithed them and put them all together. And so they're in high school career technical education, funding hold harmless for declining enrollment. And again, while we're not declining, there are many districts that are, and think that we need to be a good neighbor because we could have been in that situation or could be in the future. Our old standby student transportation funding, we're right on track again to lose approximately $1 billion. And then to provide support and funding for school mental and behavioral health services and input into the uses for the federal pandemic and infrastructure funding that the state will receive, and hope that we can have a voice in advocating for some projects like CTE in our district. So we get to that. Beth Pendergrass will ask you if there's any changes that you might want and anything that did not reflect your ideas. And then we will turn it over to the board president and give you a chance to discuss those among yourselves. We just wanted to be sure we captured your thoughts. We also have some first readings for policy changes. And for those who are with us this evening, the board does not vote on policy changes on a first reading. So the first reading is an opportunity to read it and discuss it, provide input, and make changes. And then we take those back and bring them at a future board meeting for a second reading. And at that point, the board can approve or not approve the policy changes. And you can see here, these are the policies that are being brought this evening. The primary presenters are Lauren Hatch, General Counsel, Arlene Manzanares, the Executive Director for Finance, and Sherry Carver, Executive Director for Student Services. We did have a call today and kind of went back and looked at a couple of things on this about signs on school buses. And so I just want to quickly review for you kind of what that is and how that works. And just be very quick in doing that. We have an agreement with an advertising company to use school buses for advertisements. And there are many restrictions in place. For example, you can't use them for anything that would promote alcohol or promote tobacco products or things that are objectionable. But what they do is they sell those advertisement spaces on buses. And we do generate revenue back for some of our middle school activity programs. And the statute actually says that's where the money has to go. It has to be spent on like clubs, activities, and things at the middle school level. So we can't take and use it for high school or elementary. That's just simply how the statute was written. And these advertisements have been on the buses for a long time. They are paid for by private companies, such as Presbyterian Healthcare or others. There was something on the bus about immunizations. They have been on there for a long time. They have always put them out in terms of it's time to get your immunizations for a return to fall. It's time to get your sports fitness check. It's time to get your dental check. And occasionally the state has asked to put something on, for example, like keep kids safe around water. This particular one was a public service kind of sign, but they also pay for use of the space. My understanding is when you put your buses up for advertisements, as long as it is not in one of the prohibited areas, then it's pretty much a limited forum. You can't say, oh, well, we like this advertisement, but we don't like that one. And so if you get into that business, then you have to take them off because you're treating one business or business person or vendor differently than you are another. But again, we've stipulated in the contract those things that are not allowed. And, I think that one individual thought this had to do with COVID-19 immunization. It did not. It's been up there a long time. It has to do with the returning for all the immunizations you have to have, measles, all of those things prior to entry into school. But they've also run them in the past on remember to get your sports wellness check if you plan to play sports this year. It's an opportunity to make and generate some revenue for middle school activity programs. And over the years, we've had very little problem with the vendors. They've all been appropriate and they've all been very cooperative. So I just wanted to kind of review that with you so that you know kind of what those signs are doing. That of course was board approved, and we entered into that contract several years ago. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, thanks, Dr. Cleveland. Do we have any questions? I'll just kind of look around at the board for anything. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for kind of going over the agenda for the evening. We appreciate it. So we'll now move to item E, to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations. Any changes that need to take place on the prioritized agenda as it's been presented? Do we have a motion?
This is Secretary Scott. I move to approve the prioritized agenda.
And this is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Secretary Scott and a second by Catherine Cullen. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us, please?
Yes, I can. Vice President Morgan, I think is absent. Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
That passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for our next section, we'll have public comment. For those who would like to address the board during public comment, you can do so by going to our Rio Rancho board page to submit that comment. We do read each of those comments. Tonight we have 14 comments that I will be briefly going through to get us started. So we have 10 that are all about bringing homecoming back. Some of those were from students and some of those are from parents. We have on that, so we have Lily Abeda asking that we bring homecoming back, Jamie Bermudez, Brant Bermudez, Summer Exum, Melanie Hatch, Casey Kuhn, Sandra Vasquez, Craig Exum, Michelle Steele, and Chrissy Sweeney, all asking that the decision about homecoming be looked at again. Other than that, we have 4 that were not about homecoming. We received a website address from Petra Smith. We received from Lauren Minifee. She is concerned about the amount of COVID cases in the secondary schools and suggests to have schools virtual for at least 2 days a week to clean, or maybe even having a 2-week quarantine. We received from Osria Springer concerns about dress code policies, feels that they're outdated. She posted signs around her schools to support her views, but received a suspension for that. Jolyn Pruitt, she wanted to thank everyone for working through these difficult circumstances, but is concerned that students that are being quarantined, she's concerned about their learning options. Some students are quarantined for up to 20 days. And some of the schools around our district use Google Meets or recordings from the teacher. She feels like that would be really helpful for all schools to do, and hopes that we can have consistency across the district and when we look at how those students who are quarantined are being taught at home. Okay, and that is it for our public comment for this evening. As I said at the beginning, all are welcome to address the board through public comment. We do read through those. And once again, there is a form on the RRPS board page where you could submit all of your comments. Okay, and so now we'll move on to commendations. And for our commendations tonight, of course, we have the Rotary here. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce Jerry Reeder, who can introduce everyone else who's on, and also invite those who are here with the Rotary to go ahead and turn on your cameras. Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. Good evening, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. And I am Jerry Reeder. I'm the Executive Director of Special Services. And I also happen to be the president of the Rotary Club of Rio Rancho for this year. And just really quick, as a brief history, the Rotary Club of Rio Rancho has been involved with the tutoring of the Rio Rancho Public School students since 2010. It began with one school with the students in 1st through 3rd grades. And now we're up to 8 schools as it expands kindergarten through 5th grade. Dick Hillier was a 30-year Rotarian and the principal driver of our program that helped it grow from 1 school to 4 schools before his passing in 2015. And due to this being his passion for this program, the Rotary Club named the tutoring program in his honor. The Dick Hillier tutoring program recognizes that certain students fall into a category not currently supported by any state or federal programs. These students are close to achieving grade level performance and benefit from the additional help. For the 2021-22 school year, the Dick Hillier tutoring program has pledged $30,000 to pay teachers a stipend to participate. Rio Rancho Rotary Club raises money in many ways. First, we get sponsors for the art show we just had. We've had a Roots to Wings gala. We get sponsorship from local businesses and also from the investments from the Rotary Club of Rio Rancho's foundation endowment account. I want to recognize the current president of the foundation, Audra Dodson, on a wave, and our treasurer, Ross McKellar. And I want to thank them for all of their hard work and their predecessors for all the dedication that they've put into this cause. I now want to recognize the Dick Hillier Tutoring Program team members and school liaisons. We have Lori Lowen and Bill Lowen, Earl and Patty Wade, George and Marge Austin, Sue Townsend, and Frank Rivera. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lori to give you more information about what we're doing in the schools.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting. It's hard to follow Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. We have now 8 schools on board for this program, and the schools are Maggie Cordova, Puesta del Sol, Sandia Vista, Cielo Azul, Colinas del Norte, Rio Rancho Elementary School, and the Rotary Club is proud to welcome in Joe Harris and Vista Grande Elementary Schools on board for this year. In a nutshell, the program is quite unique where the participating teachers are paid a stipend to tutor these students who are just below reading grade level. They cannot be more than 1 year below reading level. And what they do is they select 5 or 6 students from their own classroom. So the teacher knows the students know the teacher. Nobody is plucked out of a class that's 4 doors down the hallway. So everybody knows each other. And these students are giving individual attention twice a week for 2 hours a week. And they are tutored for 15 weeks between October and March. Standardized tests are given before these students are tutored, and then, of course, after the program. And most of the time, the students show a marked improvement in academic reading level. And aside from this academic improvement, the students' self-confidence grows. We see them raising their hand in the school classroom, and they want to participate more in the classroom studies. This year, we have funding for 24 teachers, and we are slowly getting our tutors on board, and we're hoping that within a few weeks, we'll have our tutors ready to go in October. Are there any questions from the board? No?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay.
Do you guys have any? We definitely want to say stuff, but we can wait until you're all done.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're good for now. If you have more to go through, Lori, that and then we'll kind of give you some.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge the team, though. There's an amazing team that we work with. They are all Rotarians, but I also need to say that the whole club is involved in this program. It's not just a team, and they get involved in the fundraising and everything else. But the team goes and visits the schools, maybe 2 or 3 times during the course of the 15 weeks, and we ask them how the students are doing. We take pictures, and it's really nice to see how the improvements are made with these students. So that's all I have to say.
And that's all we have for you tonight.
Okay, is that it?
All right, hold on. Now we have to say thank you to all of you.
Okay.
So, thank you so much. And Jerry, I didn't realize that you were the president of Rotary this year, and so that's wonderful. The Rotary Club has had such a history with Rancho Public Schools. Even when I was in high school, I remember the Rotary coming out, and it's been a while now since I was in school. But them coming out and really inspiring the students to do service and helping us with some of the projects that we had in the club that I was in at the time. And also one of my sons was able to go have breakfast with the Rotary before we hit COVID and before I was on the school board. And so we truly, truly are grateful, not only for this, but just for the great partnership that we have had with you over the years. And so thank you so much. And this is good news to hear. This is so wonderful to hear what you're willing to help Rio Rancho Public Schools with. And so we're just grateful for that. I'm going to go through the board really fast and let everyone have a chance. And then I know Dr. Cleveland already said something, but I'll give her an opportunity as well after we go through the board. Catherine Cullen.
Thank you so much for presenting. And actually, I'm very familiar with this program. It's just a wonderful program, and all that your support with the district for all these years. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Noreen Scott.
Yes, I really want to say thank you. I recognize some of you. In my working years, I was a member of Rotary and involved in some of the fundraising, and I am so grateful that you've continued your support of Rio Rancho Public Schools. We truly appreciate it, and the schools are a gem in the state, and it's largely because of the support of our community. So thank you so much.
And Wynn Coleman.
Thank you, and it is such a privilege to have Rotary involved with our students in our schools, and so thank you so much for what you do and for your support.
Thank you. And then Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything? I know that you spoke already about our wonderful Rotary.
No, just thank you all. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Thank you again for being on tonight. We appreciate it. It's always fun. I think having visitors is the most fun part for for all of us. So thank you for being on tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Got quiet. We had a lot of noise there for a moment. It was nice. Okay, so now we'll move on to our next commendation for our Human Resources Department. And I'm really honored tonight that I get to give that commendation. And so I want to invite those who are here from Human Resources to go ahead and put on your camera if you would like to. If you would like to put on your camera. And I'm not sure if everyone was able to come out tonight, but we would love to see your faces if you are here. You guys are doing that. I'm going to grab my notes. Okay. So whenever I'm doing these commendations, I guess I always try to think of how do I think of human resources and what does that really mean for our district? And so first, I'll get into that in just a second. Let me kind of say who we have here, possibly with us. Probably not all of you are on, but there's about 20 employees. Mike Chavez is really gracious to send me a couple of things, and I appreciate that. And so we have 20 employees with our Human Resources Department. They are, since there's 20, I'm just going to name them out. Valerie Rue, if you guys are on, you are welcome to wave. Valerie Rue, Teresa Stevenson, Donna McCormick, Claudine Baldwin, Wendy Webb, Rebecca Quinlivan, Jade Pacheco, Cynthia Lenz, Leanne Lopez, Dana Budger, Marsha Martinez, Kim Champion, Lacey Belen, Karen Martinez, Rich Misbach, Vanessa Berg, and Jennifer Spear, Marissa D. Aragon, Peggy Johnston, of course, and Mike Chavez as well. So, and if I butchered your names, just know that I actually practiced before I got on, but then I get on and I just can't say everyone's names right. So I apologize. So as I think about our Human Resources Department, and you guys are just this great link is kind of the image that goes through my mind, that you're this great link that holds our district together. On one side, right, you have all these expectations to uphold from the state and also from our own policies and procedures. And then we have the other side, which is the needs of all the employees of Rancho Public Schools. And you do a wonderful job. Now I'm talking about a link, but now I'm also going to talk about balancing those two things for our district. And working with HR, emotions can run really high. And we can see that anytime, but especially I think as we've gone through COVID, which we all hoped just ended in a nice little box and went away, it's still with us. And we have really seen that emotions just running high with our staff. We've seen just staff who are just really concerned, right, to go back to work. And I know from talking to Dr. Cleveland, just hearing some of the different stories of individuals who have come to HR and just asking for help and giving concerns. And I know that you guys have done all that you could to try to help everyone to be happy with what we could offer. And so we so much appreciate that. We saw, and it was so unfortunate, and there's so many people that we loved who retired early and different things like that happened as we went through the last couple of years, which always happens, but I think we had a lot more as we went through COVID. Of course, as we've talked about on numerous meetings, we're really short. We have custodial staff shortages and transportation. And yet you all have not just thrown in the towel. As Dr. Cleveland said before in her introductory comments, you have been amazing at working together and coming up with creative solutions, just like the job fair, which I know is going to be talked about here in just a little bit, but doing those job fairs for us. I truly, truly am so grateful to have you and everything that you do. Now I'm going to read this number, and I read it out loud. My husband was sitting next to me, and we both were like, "That's a lot." But just over the summer, they onboarded 600 employees. 600 employees. That is amazing. That truly is amazing that you were able to do that, and yet we have still so much more. You have just put in such great efforts, and I hear wonderful things about the work that you're doing. And so thank you to our HR department just for everything that you've been through the last couple of years with COVID, but not just that, just for everything that you do on a day-to-day basis to try to help make the environment good for our employees here at Rancho Public Schools. With that, Mike, do you want to add anything? This is, I know you and Peggy, this is kind of your guys' department, but if you want to add anything, please feel free.
I just have to add that I couldn't work with a better group of people. I could not ask for a better group of people, a more dedicated group of people that simply care tremendously about this district, about the staff of this district, and ultimately about the kids in this district. And they really truly are folks that put their heart and souls into this job, and they do it, not just for the fact that it's a job, but because they really truly believe in the mission that we have of educating the students in this district. So I can't say enough about the folks in this department, and what a joy it is to come every day and work with them. They are so pleasant. I come every day. Everyone in this department has a smile. Come down our hall someday. It's all smiles. It's all upbeat. It's friendly, happy people. And yet they work long hours. They work hard, hard, hard. So I just can't say enough and how much I appreciate every single last one of them.
Thanks, Mike. Peggy, did you want to add anything you'd like to? You're welcome to.
I think I really just want to echo everything that Mike said, and thank you so much, Amanda, for your kind words. We really appreciate the recognition tonight. That means a lot to us. And I just wanted to say that I truly find this department to be, and all of Rio Rancho Public Schools, a real blessing in my life. And everyone in this department has a lot to do with that. And I really appreciate them so much.
Thank you. So now you guys are just going to have to stay on for a second more while I let the board go ahead and say some words. And then, of course, if Dr. Cleveland would like to, she will be welcome to as well. Catherine Collin.
Thank you. We really do appreciate all the work that you've been doing. And I know it's been a real struggle for a while now, especially with some of these vacancies that we have to fill. And truly, it's a remarkable job that you guys do trying to get everybody staffed in all the departments. So we really do appreciate everything that you do. And I know there's a lot of long hours too that goes with that, especially during COVID. I know everybody was having to chip in with a lot of different things to do this year. So we really do appreciate you guys.
Noreen Scott.
I'd just like to say thank you. I really appreciate all your hard work, and it is appreciated when we get to see the smiling faces of kids as they're walking down the street after being able to go to school this year. And in large part, it is because you guys hung in there through some really tough times and kept a positive attitude, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you.
And Wynn Coleman.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I know that there have been so many things that you have worked on throughout this past year and a half and the almost 5 years that I've been a board member. And so just thank you for your ongoing commitment and determination as you've kind of gone through so many levels of handling things with especially the pandemic. So I really appreciate the department. Thank you.
And then Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything?
Now, I would just add one thing. It's an interesting group. It's a wonderful team, and they really function effectively as a team. And you'll just go in, and they're often in Mike's office, and they're around the table, and they're trying to solve problems. And here comes the superintendent, and she tosses another one right on the table. And they just come in, they just jump on it, and they get it done. And I never cease to be amazed by how very effective they are in dealing with some incredible challenges that they have faced. And they are hardworking. They're a delightful group of people, and they make this district a better place. And so I just want to thank all of them for their hard work and for being part of our school district. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks again. And thanks for all who, I know you put on your cameras and turn them off, but that's okay. We still love you. So we're just grateful that we could see you all for a few minutes. Thanks again for getting on tonight. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Right. Moving into our reports, and I just want to thank those who are here from LANL for staying on with us. I appreciate you being on here. So for our first report will be our Los Alamos National Laboratory Foundation, LANL. They have a partnership with Rio Rancho Public Schools. I'm going to go ahead and just, Jenny, do you want me to introduce everyone who's here, or do you want to do that? I don't.
I'll do it because we've had
Okay.
a little bit of a change. And
Okay.
so on the PowerPoint, should I do that or will you do it?
So Claudia will move them for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so she'll
Great.
move them for you as you go through. You can either tell her to go to next slide, or she'll kind of guess sometimes as you go through the slides. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so let me start over. President Galbraith and Vice President Morgan and Superintendent Cleveland and board members and community members, thank you so much for having us today. I can't tell you how uplifting it was to hear that first part of your meeting, because to see the community involvement with the Rotary Club and to hear about the passion of the staff and the appreciation that everyone has for each other is very heartwarming for us. We tend to see a lot of things that aren't working well, but it is clear from just your beginning of this meeting that there are so many things that are working well in your schools. And of course, Superintendent Cleveland is a legend in this state, and we are happy to know her and to get to work with her whenever we get that opportunity. So I know we only have 20 minutes, so I have my timer on, so I'm watching my timer, and we'll try to keep it brief. My name is Jenny Parks. I'm the president and CEO of the LANL Foundation, and today we have with us, if you go to the first slide, Anna Marie Garcia is not here, our Vice President of Early Childhood, and I'm not sure if Alvin, are you here? I don't see you on the list. But he may not be here, our Vice President of Career Pathways and Advocacy. But I do know we have our wonderful grants manager, Sylvan Argo, because I see her right there, and our wonderful scholarship manager, Mike Ammerman. Next slide, please. So our goals for this evening is just to share who we are and what we do, to talk about some of our current partnerships and support, and to listen and learn from you all about potential future partnership opportunities. Next slide, please. So the LANL Foundation, we share a name with Los Alamos National Laboratory, but we are not a part of Los Alamos National Laboratory. We are a separate 501c3 that was created 25 years ago. We are a public charity. We were created by the Los Alamos Public Schools, the congressional delegation of the time, and leadership from the University of California and Los Alamos National Laboratory to give back to the communities surrounding Los Alamos, and they chose as a focus education. So our endowment that came from Congress, we're a very unusual foundation because we had earmarks thanks to Senator Pete Domenici and others of the delegation. It's restricted to support public school children in the vicinity of Los Alamos National Laboratory. So anything we do beyond that, we raise funds for. So we do get a lot of grant funding specifically for our early childhood work, as well as our college and career pathways and our scholarship work, which Mike will talk about in a minute. I'm not going to read through our vision and our mission. You can read it yourself, but I do want you to know that our commitment as a learning organization, as well as promoting racial and social equity, is a long-standing commitment for us. We know that public schools play a huge role in the trajectory of students, and it can be negative or positive. And so that's something that we try to work through all of our various programs, and to use that lens with all of the work that we're doing. Next slide, please. So we serve a 7-county area, and as Superintendent Cleveland mentioned, Sandoval County is one of our counties. I will admit that Sandoval County probably is not the county that receives the most assistance from us. And we'll get into that in a minute. One of the reasons may be, especially when we look at our inquiry science program, which is our largest program, due to your size. But we do have grants in Sandoval County every year, and we do have scholarships in Sandoval County every year. So I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. Next slide, please. So we're a very unusual foundation in that we have a lot of tools at our disposal. We kind of are like a nonprofit who also gives out grants and scholarships. So we work from the prenatal, really, on a continuum of education through early childhood, K through 12, and now we've added a career portion of our work. Our scholarship program is our longest lasting program at the LANL Foundation. Was started 25 years ago when we began by, again, staff and management at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. But now we've added a whole new section of our work around college and career. And Alvin Warren, who is our Vice President of Career Pathways and Advocacy, he is leading that effort from Santa Clara Pueblo and former cabinet secretary under Governor Richardson. So we feel very grateful to have him on staff. We use a variety of tools. We do advocacy, we do programming, we give out grants, we give out scholarships, we do a lot of collaborations, we do convenings, we do research. And so we really are trying to inspire excellence in education and to support our 7 counties in these different areas. Next slide, please. So in early childhood education, next slide, we are really focused on a few areas. The largest area that we've been focused on for many years is home visitation. I'm sure you're probably familiar with the home visiting programs, and they are really evidence-based that they really do make a big difference in the long-term well-being of children and families, everything from their physical health to their psychological health. And so we've been a big promoter of the Firstborn program. Most recently, we've been working with the 8 Northern Indian Pueblos, helping them each develop their own strategic plan around early childhood in each of their pueblos. And now we're helping them with implementation of that. So home visitation is sort of the first and probably the largest area we focus on. And then into early Head Start and kindergarten and pre-K, of course, as well. Next slide, please. So again, we focus on 3 areas in this advocacy, and that's in terms of working with legislators to both inform them and keep them up to date in the latest research. We also were active in trying to get the Early Childhood Education and Care Department established. We're very happy that that has been established. We do a lot of education of trying to teach parents and caregivers about early brain development, and it's important in the trajectory of a child's life. And then we host and hold a lot of collaborations. We have an early childhood collaborative in Rio Arriba County. We have a new initiative called Grandparents and Kin Raising Grandchildren. This is not specifically focused on Rio Arriba County, but it is a big recipient of our attention there because there's a very large percentage of students who are not living with either parent. We also, as I mentioned, doing the early childhood Pueblo outreach work, and we do statewide work. We're part of the New Mexico Early Childhood Funding Collaborative, and also the Pritzker grant that the Early Childhood Education Care Department got around increasing support for early childhood. So you can go to the next slide. By far, our largest amount of funding goes into K-12. That's again where our endowment is restricted to. Our biggest program in that is our inquiry science program. And while we're not in any Rio Rancho schools, we are currently serving in 46 different northern New Mexico schools, about 12,000 students. And this is K through 6. And basically we provide all of the materials, all of the curriculum, and all the professional development for the teachers. It's all aligned with next generation science standards. We have a warehouse where we store all these materials, and it is housed or staffed by 4 full-time people. It's a very big undertaking. We just delivered all of the science curriculum to the classrooms this last week, and this week we're doing makeup training for teachers. We have almost 100 teachers getting makeup training. These are teachers who were either not hired during the summer yet or who have changed grades since last year. And I heard about how many people you guys are hiring in your district, which is kind of mind-blowing that you've been able to do that. But other districts, as you probably know, are also having issues with vacancies and bringing in teachers late. So we're very excited about this program. We've been doing it for 10 years, which is probably the most consistency some of our school districts have seen of anything. And so while we're not in Rio Rancho schools, we are happy to be supporting other schools in this endeavor. Next slide. We recently we've done 2 research papers in the last 12 months. One was on recruiting and retaining teachers in northern New Mexico, and it was really looking at teacher retention rates. And we did talk to some of your teachers and students. So we did around 600 teachers and around 380 students through focus groups and surveys, and learned a lot about teacher satisfaction. And I will tell you, kind of the takeaways from that is, number one, locally grown teachers stick around longer and report more job satisfaction, and also can feel like they can relate to their students better. As important as pay is the principal and leadership at the school. And so school culture and climate is really important. And then we learned that most students, only 3% of students, our students in high school, were interested in going into teaching because they feel like the profession is not respected and it doesn't pay well. So those are probably not news flashes for you all, but we've been presenting this. We presented it to the LASC and also are presenting it to the LFC next week. And so hope that it can be a catalyst for some changes. We also do other programs. So we just finished a trauma-informed instruction program at 5 elementary schools. It's last year. We're working with the Southwest Family Care Centers out of Albuquerque and Dr. Craig Pierce, who you're probably familiar with. And then we are doing all different kinds of things to provide principal support and also teacher awards, et cetera. And so we do a variety of different things focusing on growing and supporting teachers, social and emotional well-being of students, and STEM education. Those are kind of our 3 K-12 focus areas. We also have been supporting teachers going through their national board certification training. We've had 30 K-12 teachers so far, and we give out annual Excellence in Teaching Awards in Rio Arriba County, as well as in Pewaukee School District. We are actually in communication with the Golden Apple Foundation, who are looking to bring more of their wraparound services for teachers to New Mexico. They've done it in Illinois and are coming here now to build on what they're already doing with the Teachers Awards. So that might be of interest to you. Next slide, please. Grants. So I'm going to hand it over to Sylvan and let her talk about grants for a few minutes. And Sylvan, we've got 7 minutes and 51 seconds left.
Oh my gosh, I'll be fast. Thank you so much for having us. And I am happy to talk offline outside of this meeting with any of you on anything grants related following up this meeting. Just wanted to let you know that there are opportunities and since 1998, we have given $1,023,579 specifically to Rio Rancho Public Schools in 21 different grants. And so actually, Dr. Cleveland, your name is on a lot of those grants that I see. So you'll have a memory of many of those programs and projects in different areas of training and leadership and technology and career integration into your schools. But actually, we haven't received many applications and haven't granted to the Rio Rancho Public Schools in a couple of years now. And so I would highly encourage any of your teachers and staff, administrators, counselors to get together and vision for how to best support your students, because we have a few different grant opportunities available to you. The next cycle that's open is a competitive cycle. And just so you all know, historically, if you knew how we used to grant in past years, there was a lot more that was distributed from different funding that we got that was allocated by school district and was not as competitive, but was by invitation only. But now we have moved a bulk of our funds, and specifically in the K through 12 realm, into competitive grants. And so we're really excited to be launching some different cycles and opportunities. The next one that opens up is going to be opening in January. It's our outreach grant cycle and community and education focused grants. This is one of our few grant cycles where we do have some unrestricted endowment funds that can go towards more community-based initiatives as well. So if you have any program or project partners, even if you're connected with the Rotary or others that are doing more school and community focused programs and projects, we do grant to community focused programs as well. But the outreach grants, you can apply for up to $5,000. And the application cycle, we're still tweaking our timeline, but typically applications are due in February. And we do have a significant amount. We have a few $100,000 to grant out in that cycle. And so I would highly encourage any of your teachers and administrators to consider submitting a grant in this. And then the other big news is that we have launched into 2-year cycles in support of education enrichment. And this is a bigger, longer term grant where you can apply for up to $20,000 a year for 2 years, focusing on K through 12 education. And this is in these areas that Jenny had mentioned, growing and supporting teachers and educational leaders, STEAM, whole child development, college, career, and community pathways, and even linking with that community capacity building. All of our grants, these are kind of our focus areas that we look at and distribute across. And so with these larger grants, we encourage you to think big, dream big, systems thinking, looking for that collaboration. This last cycle, we even saw a lot of great collaboratives where organizations were working with school districts and universities, even in our region, to come up with student and teacher and learning focused programs and projects. So please do consider, if you go to the next slide, as well, we also would love to hear from you regarding your priorities. So that's something I'm hoping to engage with any and all of our districts, is just to learn better your needs. And so I would welcome a conversation, a call, another Zoom to help inform our grant making. But we really do work with our grantees as well to cultivate connections and relationships beyond the grant dollar. So we do a lot of cohort development, training opportunities, things like that. In 2020, we did award over $1 million through 112 grants to 99 nonprofit schools and tribal communities. And we do look to partnerships. So Jenny mentioned our early childhood funders group. We are also looking at other funders collaboratives and zone grants and opportunities where we can connect in. And if you have things that you would recommend we look to help bring funding to our region in support of our students and teachers and districts, then we would welcome your input and suggestions, as you are all the experts on the ground. So thank you for the opportunity to speak and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Sylvan. Okay, next slide. Scholarships. Mike Ammerman, we have 3 minutes left and 2 more sections.
Well, brevity is not always my strong suit when I talk about scholarships because I get really excited about this. But I really want to talk to you about the 2 categories of scholarships that we offer and kind of what differentiates the 2. All the information about the application process can be found on our website, but I think it's helpful to talk about kind of the big buckets of opportunities that we have. And they're in general terms, there are 4-year undergraduate scholarships and our career pathway scholarships. The 4-year undergraduate scholarships are what most people know about through the foundation. They're serving traditional high school students, typically very high performing, well-rounded students who we're looking for the same thing in this top candidates, and that's a commitment to academic excellence, leadership, and service. And those scholarships are anywhere from a $1,000 opportunity to $20,000. And while these are truly merit-based scholarships, we go to great lengths to ensure that it's an equitable process and that a student from a small rural school has just the same opportunity to be seen as a student from a large, high-performing, well-resourced school. And we're able to do that through a volunteer committee of 25 volunteers who work for 3-year terms to really drive this process. So there's a lot of integrity built into the process. So we feel great about that. The Career Pathway Scholarship is different. It was originally designed for adult returning students, non-traditional students who are returning to higher education, or maybe they got a GED at one point and that's where they stopped out. It's also designed for folks who are reskilling and going back to school to get a new degree and change careers. And specifically, these scholarships are for students who want to earn a 2-year degree or a credential in a trade. So if there are students who are more in that career technical education pathway and they know that they want to take some of those credits they've earned as high school students and earn an associate's degree, they can absolutely apply for this scholarship. And it'll be awarded to that type of student as well as the adult learners that I mentioned. And those scholarships are renewable for up to 2 years because they are for 2-year degrees for up to a total of $3,000. Last year alone, we awarded $850,000 to over 150 students from northern New Mexico. We did not receive a lot of applications from the high schools in your area. We did receive some from, and we're talking single digits from Rio Rancho, Visu Cleveland, and Rio Rancho Cyber Academy. But we would love to see more. So we do some direct outreach to schools where we send people to do, last year was all virtual. We will give presentations to any interested group, whether that's an entire school or a classroom within a school. If there are groups within your schools that are serving in a college access capacity, like an AVID program or something like that, we're very interested in talking to those students. So we'll tailor a presentation to whatever audience is willing to listen. If you could go on to the next slide. So here's an example of one of our Rio Rancho High scholarship recipients from last year who's studying molecular engineering and cellular biology at the University of Connecticut. I think that's the kind of student that we're kind of known for serving, these kind of high-performing STEM students. But I want to stress that our scholarships are open to students pursuing any field at all. One of our top awards last year went to a student who was studying, creative arts and environmental justice. We have students who are pursuing degrees in creative writing. It's not just STEM fields. That said, there are certain scholarships for specific degree pathways. There are some for students pursuing STEM degrees, some for students pursuing business, nursing, education. So the students apply one time to one application, and they are matched to the scholarship that they are most eligible and qualified for. Financial need is a component, and some specific scholarships require that a student have demonstrated financial need. But for our general funds, again, they are merit-based. But it's a holistic review process, and we do look at the student in the context of the communities and the environment they come from, and the opportunities they've been afforded and what they've done with that. So one thing to note is that the students do need to reside in one of the 7 counties that we serve. We know that some students may attend a school in Rio Rancho Public Schools, but reside in a different county, and that would be filtered out during the screening process. So attendance at the school alone does not constitute eligibility.
So Mike, we're way out of time. Do you want to just let them know about the timing?
All of the 4-year application will open in October. The selections, it'll be due in January, and the selections will take place in the spring, and the career pathways will open in January, and those selections will also be made in the spring. And we will send information directly to the high schools and invite them to allow us to present to students.
And I just want to mention, because I don't think you did, Mike, and if you did, forgive me, but the money for these scholarships is raised every year, and it almost all of it comes from LANL employees who give out of their paycheck every 2 weeks. So they're very generous, and we're very appreciative of that. And then also the decisions are made by a 25-member advisory group out of mostly also LANL employees, although we're trying to expand that beyond just LANL employees and contractors and retirees. So just wanted to mention that. Okay, next 2 slides. I'll go super fast and then we're done. So this is our new area of work. And what I want to, Alvin is very ambitious. He has 6 kind of strategies around this. But basically, it's first of all trying to increase work-based learning opportunities for students in our area. We want to strengthen regional leadership and partnerships, like the kind of partnership you all have with Rotary is amazing, and try to get our group, people working in this field to be less siloed and more united in what we're working on. We're trying to, we're part of a big broadband collaborative of a bunch of funders all over northern New Mexico, trying to help make sure that communities can access a lot of these funds that are coming down from the feds and the state around broadband access. Always trying to support Pueblos and tribal nations in reaching their community, career, and college pathways goals. And also, right now we're partnering with the PED and doing an assessment of successful programs in New Mexico that have a strong CTE or work-based learning component to them. And we're doing a research paper on that with the hope that that might reveal some promising models for the future. Next slide, and this is our last slide. So we did another research paper about college and career pathways, and I don't know if it was Superintendent Cleveland or someone from your district participated and shared with us the kinds of things you do. We have these various, you can see the facilitation, we have these various collaboratives that we're working in, including growing our own teachers, native teachers and counselors, a pilot project on that. And then we're trying to do more pathways programs. One we're doing with the Santa Fe Indian School, one we're working on right now with Espanola High School, Northern New Mexico College and Presbyterian, and then an Albuquerque group, Future Focus Education, where they're trying to expand their internship program into Northern New Mexico. So that's us in a little over 20 minutes. So sorry we went over a little bit, but if there's any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Well, thank you. And thank you. Like, I hope you, yeah, it was totally fine that you went over. Don't worry. We appreciate you coming and presenting tonight. I'm going to go ahead and go through the board and just see if anyone has any questions for you. And we'll start with Wynn Coleman.
I don't, but thank you so much for everything you do for opportunities for our students in our community. I'm hoping that more of our students do take advantage of these opportunities.
Thank you.
All right, Noreen Scott.
I was very impressed with your presentation. I had no idea that you were doing that much work. Congratulations to all the folks at LANL who invest in this program. It's certainly worthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Catherine Cullen.
No, I do receive some emails from the foundation every so often, and I've kind of watched it with the scholarships and some other things that you guys are doing, but this really opened up my eyes to a lot of other initiatives that you're doing. And I really appreciate that, especially with the grants, and we're going to have to really see what our school district can look at to apply for some of these grants, and as well as some of our students applying for these scholarships. It's very important to get them out there and at the school so that they're aware that those scholarships are available. So we'll make sure that I'm sure Dr. Cleveland's taking some notes and they can see what they need to do to get a little bit more information out to our students on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything?
Just a thanks for you being here and going over all of this evening. And so we appreciate your time and effort. As I said, we appreciate all that you do to improve education in New Mexico with a focus on Northern New Mexico. And we will continue to try to have that dialogue. Sometimes I'm not sure there really is an understanding with regards to Rio Rancho schools in terms of the diversity that we have. Our 23 languages, 2,000 students who claim Native heritage, almost 1,000 of those totally certified as 100% Native American based on federal standards. 55% of our children are Hispanic. We have a lot of needs in our district, and so we're very appreciative of opportunities to help those students find those resources and to be able to further their education or take advantage of these various programs. I think sometimes there's a perception that Rio Rancho students really aren't looked at very carefully in this process, and so maybe that's something we need to have a dialogue about together in terms of how we can help communicate that that's really not the message at all. And would very much like Rio Rancho students and staff to become more involved in this process. So we're certainly willing to continue to be a good partner and to try to expand those opportunities. I just want to tell you, well, those needs are really do exist here. The other thing that I think you are all very familiar with is that Rio Rancho is one of the districts that receives the least money per pupil of any districts in the state of New Mexico. And so every effort that we have to help our programs and to be able to serve the needs that we have is just tremendously appreciated. And money is tight. We make our money go a really long way. We have a very involved administrative team. We have a very involved board really looks at expenditures and how we can make our money go a very long way. But we have just about the least of it per pupil of any district in this state. And so we do want to be sure to take advantage of every opportunity that you might have for us. So again, but just in general, we thank you. We thank LANL and the foundation for all the really good work you do in often very challenging times. And it's really always good to look out and see there's somebody out there trying to make your life a little easier and a little better. And because there's plenty of the others sometimes who feel that way. But that has always been the message that we have had, is an effort to make things better for staff and students and communities. And we really thank you for being here. We'll just redouble our efforts to improve our communication with you. And you know, it's been kind of a lapsed couple of years. It's been kind of hard. And we really can step up our game a bit, and we'll do that. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for coming out and honestly opening that dialogue. I just really appreciate that you looked at it and were like, hey, Rio Rancho Public Schools could use some more, and that you came out tonight to our meeting to start that dialogue. And so we really are grateful that you came out tonight. So thank you. And we look forward to talking more with you about these things and what we can do better. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, President and Vice President and board members. And thank you always, Dr. Cleveland.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Yeah, and you could see that there was a couple information that they sent out to parents can apply for scholarships as well. So I appreciate all those little comments that they made. Okay, so on to our next report. We have an enrollment update, and we have Kim Vesley, our assistant to the superintendent, who will be presenting.
Hello, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. It's a pleasure to see you in a different capacity tonight. Talk a little bit about enrollment. Claudia, if you could go ahead and put the first slide up. Thank you. It's been kind of a wild few years with enrollment here, and we'll show you a graph here in just a second. Really, we've been in a slight enrollment decline for about 3 years. It started in after the 2017-18 school year, when we started to see very small declines, 100, 200 student type range declines. And then, of course, that got amplified during the pandemic when pretty much everybody in the state lost enrollment. As Dr. Cleveland pointed out earlier in her remarks, enrollment has largely recovered. The students have come back, most of them, but we are still a little bit short of where we were in 2019, 2020. And if you can put the graph up now, please. This looks at enrollment in the district since we became a district. And it's actually kind of funny and compressed looking, but you can kind of see that trend. 2017-18, we hit our peak enrollment, which was about 17,700 students. And then it dropped off just slightly for a couple of years. And then we had the big drop last year. And then this year it has started to rebound. The big growth, well, there's a very big jump that occurred in 1996 and 7 and 8, which is when we opened Rio Rancho High School. And then a very steep curve that went on through the first decade of the 2000s, when we had 1 year where we grew by about 1,200 kids. Then the recession hit in 2009, 2010, and our enrollment kind of flattened out. And that's kind of been where we have been. So that gives you kind of an overview of where we have been. If you can change to the next slide, this graph kind of shows it in percentage terms. You can see we spent a lot of time growing, and then we started to drop off by like under 1% a year. We had a big drop last year, and now the very preliminary numbers that we're sharing with you today indicate that we have started to rebound just a little bit. Next slide, please. The trends are a little bit different depending on what grade level you're talking about. Shining Stars, for example, looks like it's kind of declined. The numbers you see here show both a comparison between the 20th day. The 20th day was around 1st of September this year. There's two columns that show comparisons with the 20th day, or roughly year over year, both for against this last year, 2020, 21. And then also we included a second column, which is in the yellow, which compares it against 2019-20, which was the year before the pandemic. And then we did the same thing for the 40th day, which is the official first enrollment reporting period. So there's a year over year that's very preliminary, and then there's the 40th day comparison, and those are more solid numbers, really. Shining Stars tends to pick up enrollment throughout the year. So you see 563 students now. That's going to increase throughout the year, and we typically pick up 40, 50 students during the year. So our enrollment will probably wind up by the end of the year being about 600 students. And that is because we continually screen students who may be in need of Shining Stars services that they offer. Elementary and middle school, and particularly elementary, is where our enrollment loss has been. And we think there might be a couple of reasons for that. One is that birth rates have been declining. Another is that the housing market in Rio Rancho has tended in recent years to favor more expensive homes. Rio Rancho for many years was a community that was known for offering affordable housing to young families, and that has kind of changed. And especially now with the housing market being what it is, and actually quite a hot housing market. So we think that we're beginning to see a trend where the families coming in tend to have older children, and the high school enrollment may in some degree bear that out, because the high school enrollment has continued to increase. So that's just to kind of give you an overview by grade level. The next slide talks a little bit about individual schools, and the enrollment growth is not consistent among elementary schools. Some have actually kind of declined a little bit or a little bit more, and we actually have schools that have gained enrollment. Most of those are in areas of town where we have development going on, which probably isn't surprising. For example, Ernest Stapleton, Joe Harris. Joe Harris's enrollment has gone up by about 50 students this year. And that's really even before Los Diamantes really starts building homes. So we expect there'll be a lot more growth there. Sandia Vista is in a pretty high growth area at Lomas Encantadas. So just wanted to give you a couple of examples of what we're looking at there. Next slide talks a little bit about what's happening at secondary. The high schools have been growing pretty much across the board. Part of the reason you see the big jump at the Cyber Academy is the influx of all virtual students we have seen, with that becoming a partially virtual only school. There's still about 132 students there who are on the hybrid model, where they actually attend classes at the campus some of the week. Mountain View has continued to see some strong growth. Eagle Ridge and Lincoln have moderated a little bit, but that just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea, just really quickly. And if we can move to the next slide, we thought you might be interested in taking a look at what's going on with virtual. We have, at the time this data was polled last week, we had 225 students enrolled at Spark. the new elementary virtual academy. We have 170 virtual only students at the Cyber Academy. So that's coming up pretty close to 400 students who are taking advantage of that virtual option. And 17,000 students, though, are on our campuses in person. This obviously does not take into account students that are temporarily on quarantine. This is just looking at enrollment and what program students are enrolled in. Total enrollment. Okay, what's the bottom line? We have rebounded some. And this just basically looks at 20th day. And we have gained about 400, and it also looks at what the gain is, and it compares it against 2020 to 21 and 2019 to 20, both for what's called total enrollment. And then we also have what the number of students that are funded through the state equalization guarantee, which is the funding formula. All of our students are funded, but not all of the students get funded through the formula. And that's especially true at Shining Stars, where about 350 of those students are grant funded. And we also have small numbers of other students who are funded from other sources. But we just kind of wanted to give you a look at that. And I think that's my last slide. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer those, or there may be others online who can also answer some of your questions as well.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add something real quick?
Yeah, I would add a couple of things. The decline of enrollment at the elementary level in terms of the school capacity was planned. When we opened Joe Harris, the goal was to bring those elementary schools down below the numbers that they were at. And one of the things, they were at 800, 900, 1,000. So it was a conscious effort to get those schools down to a more optimum size for elementary, which is 600 to 700. So we've got a couple that are inching back up, but we have a little room for growth there, and that's a good thing. The other thing is that program has changed. So when many of these schools were built, we didn't have STEAM labs, and and there are a lot of things that were not built into those buildings that we've had to retrofit. And so that begins to eat away at the actual classroom space. So the other last comment is, with Shining Stars, two things. One, it takes quite a while to do the assessment for children. So that's why it grows, through the year, more children come, but it's also just the process of getting them assessed and getting them placed. The other that I have been told by the principal is there are still some parents, especially children who are very vulnerable children, are concerned about putting them back in the classroom yet, in a school building yet. They're just nervous about putting them in a large environment, and especially when they're 4 years old. And so we think we're still seeing a little reluctance there. And unfortunately, we don't have any option for Shining Stars in terms of a virtual environment. But I think that does impact. People have just been very protective of their very young children, especially if they're children that have vulnerable medical conditions or other things that make the parent a little more careful and cautious about it. The other one thing was mentioned, I think, but I wanted to underscore, the cost of housing is a factor. As Kim has said, the birth rates have been declining, and they've been declining since the Great Recession. And so we've certainly seen that trend in New Mexico. We've seen it across the country. There are some signs that maybe that was beginning to pick up again, and then COVID hit. So it kind of set it all back. That trend of maybe inching back up in terms of birth rate. We're still seeing the birth rate flat or declining in our state. And then last, as you know, and one of the things we're all trying to work on is that New Mexico had the least growth of any of the states in this region. And so we didn't have a lot of new people coming in, way below Texas, Colorado, Arizona, in terms of new growth of people moving here. So there's a lot of things that are impacting that. And the goal is to get our economy growing again and see that positive growth develop as a result of economic development in our city and in our region. So those are the only comments that I wanted to add.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and go through questions. Catherine Cullen, we'll start with you.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Noreen Scott.
I don't have any questions either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Wynn Coleman.
I don't, but Kim, thank you for putting this together and presenting this to us.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Kim. If you guys don't know, I feel Kim is the voice of the district. She always is the one who called my house at like 5 a.m. about snow and everything else. So anyway, we're grateful to you, Kim, for presenting this tonight and putting it all together. So thank you for presenting that.
Thank you.
All right, so next we'll have our personnel update, and we want to welcome back Mike Chavez, our Executive Director of Human Resources, also Peggy Johnston, our Director of Human Resources, to present.
Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. What we'd like to do this evening is give you a little bit of an update on our current job situation, our current opening situation. Before we do that, though, I'd like to have an opportunity to allow Peggy Johnston to give you a little bit of a discussion about what we've been doing to kind of work towards filling these positions. So if we could go to the next slide, and Peggy, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute.
Except for you're muted, Peggy.
Where's that money jar? Put the money. Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you, President Galbraith and members of the board. We appreciate being able to come before you this evening. One of the creative ideas that we came up with really was to look at a job fair. And I certainly don't want to say that HR took all that credit by any means. We had some suggestions from other departments and other directors and principals that maybe a job fair that was our own job fair versus joining someone else's would be an effective thing for the district. And so we've done 2 so far, and we have really enjoyed them. We did them about a month apart, one at the district office and then also one at our transportation center. And both were very well attended. We also had representatives from facilities and transportation, food service and security there along with HR. And we were able to do on-the-spot interviews. We were able to help folks with their application process. For some folks, the digital application can be a little daunting, a little scary, especially if they haven't been in the working world for a while. So the HR team was really there to help. We were there to help answer questions and talk about the district and the benefits of working for Rio Rancho Public Schools. And then we also had district translators available if anybody needed that service. So we really found that to be a great tool for us. For the HR side of things, we really kind of focused on recruitment of educational assistants and our substitute teachers as well. And it was, I think everybody in HR, you kind of have to be a people person. So for us, it was really fun because we actually got to meet people that were interested in joining our team. And we got to talk to them about the benefits of working for Rio Rancho Public Schools. And that was really a great thing. What we would like to do moving forward is potentially do these once a month so that we have kind of a standing date to do these job fairs and do these in-person interviews, on-the-spot interviews, if you will. And I think that that's going to be a great service to our community.
Thank you, Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we can see the next slide, please. So that being said, I don't have nearly as much data as Kim did. However, I want to really talk about several of the very crucial positions in our district. To start with, we are at bus drivers, we're at 7 openings. That's a few more than we definitely like. However, we've kind of gone up and down a little bit with bus drivers. We've had a few that have left us since the school year started, but we've also been able to bring a few on board. And we actually had a couple that came in and interviewed with us just at this last job fair. So we are seeing some movement in that area. We are seeing people that are beginning to be interested in some of these positions. And I'm very hopeful in that area. Custodial, as you can see, is a significant improvement. If you remember, we were up to 40 or more custodial openings across the district. We are now down to 10 openings, and we continue to interview and find new folks that are willing to come in and fill our custodial positions. Our custodial management team, they are fabulous, and they are doing a terrific job of working and finding these folks to fill these positions. Counselors, we're down to 1. GE teachers, we do have 7 openings across the district, but I do want to caution just a little bit. We just recently added a couple of new positions across the district in a couple of schools. So the numbers went up a little bit with openings, but that's because we actually looked at a couple of schools where there was some growth. For example, at Vista Grande, Kim just gave us, the numbers of growing students, growing numbers of students. And so because of that, there were some needs to add some staff. So there are some openings that impacted these numbers just a little bit right before, of course, I presented them to you. So the numbers are a little bit bigger than they were, but that's okay because we really are still finding people to fill, particularly general ed. Unfortunately, as is typical, not so much in the special ed area, but we're working on it. Health assistants, we're still looking at 3 openings, and educational assistants is an area where we're still having some difficulty finding people to fill those positions, which we're not quite sure why that is, but we're definitely working on continuing to advertise and work to see what we can do to fill those positions. So we are still at about 37 educational assistant openings. So that's a little bit of a recap of where we are with the basic positions across the district. And at that point, Peggy and I will stand for questions.
Okay. First, I wanted to say thank you for presenting all this to us so that we could see it tonight. And I'm sorry that it changes like right up to the last minute, but we appreciate it. It's totally fine. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add before I go to the board anything?
No, I really don't have anything. It's just, I will continue to work on this. There's no easy answers to this. There aren't any easy answers for any of the school districts right now in New Mexico. We are just short people who are wanting to work in schools. And I think it's still a factor. The pandemic is still a factor, and people are not ready to come back yet. The other is there just seems to be a shift in the country as a whole of people looking at different kinds of employment than what they had before. And so I think we're feeling that pressure as well. But we'll continue to sell the district. We have a lot of good things to look at. I think one of the other things that we're hearing from the state, we're going to have significant money next year as a state. And we hope one of the areas that the state will prioritize is education and compensation for education employees. Because in some of these areas, I don't think we're going to see dramatic progress until we can improve the compensation in those categories. And that's just the reality, a financial reality of it. You have, in particular with drivers, you have a CDO, you can drive a school bus, or you can drive a private vehicle for a large shipping company for considerably more revenue. So I think the whole piece of compensation has got to be looked at, and hopefully school districts may be one of the areas that they're looking at in terms of compensation. And I hope if they do, they look at some of these areas where we are not paying market value or competitive salary to be able to help us fund, for example, our bus drivers or some of the other areas as well. And the other that wasn't mentioned because it's separate, and it's not, but that's substitutes. And we did meet last week to talk about substitutes. And on the day we met, we had not been able to fill 50% of the requests. And so HR is really working hard on that issue. Unfortunately, we have plenty of people, according to HR, that are on the roster. They're just not choosing to come to work right now. They're not making that decision yet. And in many cases, I think you've heard it's personal safety and still a little bit of a fear of going back into a school environment. We hope that the situation will get better and that they will come back. But we're also going to look at new ways of getting people that maybe have not looked at substituting before to consider it as a short-term position and a way to make some money, perhaps for some college students or some other groups as well. But substitutes are a critical situation that we're facing right now in the district, and you have to have substitutes to run a district. I'm aware of some districts, not in our state, but very close, that had to shut their doors because they could not staff their classrooms. They had insufficient. And then the other issue is leaning on staff to have to fill in those vacancies or double up. And they're already working pretty hard. They already have a lot on the plate. So asking them to do more is certainly a challenge too. And so it's one of the areas that we are working hard on. We are aware of. I know many of you have heard about the shortage, and we're trying our best to solve that problem as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Yeah, my son last week was on that day where we were really, really short on subs. He kind of had to deal with that in his classes. So it was hard. That was a really rough day to be short on subs. So, but thank you. So we'll go ahead and go through the board. Noreen Scott, do you have any questions or anything?
I do. I had one quick question. Where are you holding the job fairs?
We are holding them in the training center. The first two, actually, we held the first one in the training center. The second one we held at the transportation department. After having the two different job fairs, we are discovering, I think, that the training center, I think, is the more amenable of the two places. More, what would you say, Peggy?
I think it's just more accessible to the public.
Yeah.
Easier to find.
Yeah.
I was curious. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Wynn Coleman.
I'm just curious with the educational assistant roles. I know that the EAs can do a number of different things working with a number of different student population. And are you seeing any one specific area that seems to be impacted the most with the EA positions?
Well, the EAs, as they're hired at the schools, are placed in different positions by the principal. So we don't advertise. When we advertise for EAs, we advertise just for the position of EA. When the principal interviews, they have the opportunity to let the person know this is specifically in the area of kindergarten or special ed. There are very, very few general education EAs, as it were. In other words, EAs who work, say, in the workroom or in the library. We have very few of those. So really the two areas would be either special education or a kindergarten EA. The majority of our EAs are special education EAs.
And what is the retention of an educational assistant? How long do they typically stay with our district?
Oh gosh, it varies greatly. We've had educational assistants retire with the district. We have educational assistants who've been with the district for many, many, many years. Others don't stay very long. Just depends, if they're just simply looking for something to tide them over. Others come in and actually what they're looking for is an opportunity to learn what it's like to be in a school because they're looking to decide whether they want to be a teacher or not. And we have many, many EAs who go on to become teachers. We often hire EAs who hold a degree already. They might have a bachelor's degree, and then they will take the educational assistant job. They'll work maybe a semester and then they'll decide they really enjoy working with the students and they'll move on to alternative licensure and become a teacher in a classroom. So it's quite a wide variety of folks. And you have to remember, we have about 320 EAs in this district. So it's quite a large number of folks that we're talking about. So you really do have quite a spectrum of folks from one end to the other.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I add one thing to that? Just two quick things. One of the areas that definitely needs to be looked at in terms of compensation is educational assistance. It's one of the areas in our state that the pay is much too low. It comes at the state level. It needs to be looked at. It's a serious issue across the state. The second is a little bit of good news, and there are some new grant opportunities now. And almost any educational assistant who wants to be a teacher, there's money to provide it for you, to provide your tuition and your books and your materials and all of that. In some cases, some additional income. So we certainly encourage any of our educational assistants to look at that. But it's a great step up from an educational assistant to teacher because they know exactly what it looks like in that classroom. They have already had a lot of very good practical experience, and they make wonderful teachers when they move into a teaching position. So we have tried, HR's tried and worked hard to facilitate that. But there is a new grant this year that not only will pay their tuition, but give them actually a stipend that will help pay for that. And I would really encourage anyone who's interested. But that's an area of compensation that we've just got to look at as a state, as it is not enough. And many of our educational assistants will be very open about saying they work for benefits. We do have a good benefits package, and that keeps a lot of our EAs working with the district, is the package. And the other is they like the work schedule, the year schedule, the time off at Christmas with their children, the summers off, and some of those things. But that only goes so far. You know, you still have to be able to provide for your family. And I'm really hoping that that's one of the areas that the state will target. Because they work very hard. They're a very important part of our school district. And in my opinion, we need to, as a state, get our act together and look at compensation in that area, as in several other areas, but certainly in this one. Then my last comment is just to echo what Mike said. The majority of our teachers, teacher assistants work with children with disabilities, and some of them work for very severe children. There is a pay differential for those working with the most severe children. And we have found that helps keep some of them working with that child. But in most cases, it's just their own personal passion and commitment to help that child. And they are just invaluable in helping the teacher in the classroom meet the needs of that individual child with disabilities. The easiest, my experience over the years to fill is kindergarten EAs. Those are a little bit easier to fill, but we really hope we lose some of those EAs for a very good reason, and that reason is they go into our teaching pool, and we're really glad when they choose to do
that. If I may, this is Board Member Coleman. I'm just wondering, with that, and I had seen that incentive as far as I think it was the scholarship for EAs that decide that they want to go ahead and go into go back to school for their education degree. Is that part of what the district is marketing as just kind of I know we're not offering it, but is that something that could be a part of the marketing to just kind of incentivize people?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea. The programs are run through the universities. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what it's called, but the programs for the scholarships and such for EAs to go to school and become a teacher are actually run through the universities. And then the districts have an agreement, kind of a required agreement, that if an EA needs time off and such to work on their schoolwork, we will cooperate with that EA and they can get time off and things like that. So that's actually not a bad idea. We could certainly put that out there, Peggy, and put that open that up to folks that might be interested in becoming an educational assistant and ultimately become a teacher. So yeah, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. And Catherine, I haven't gotten to you, right? Catherine.
No, you hadn't.
Okay.
So I had, how can I just ask all these questions at once? If you know that the information from your last job fair, about how many people showed up for the job fair, how many offers did we give out to those ones that showed up at the job fair, and how many did we actually hire?
So I'll work backwards. As far as hired, I really couldn't tell you. I'd have to go back in and look. I would say that for sure what I would know would be about the custodial, and I'm pretty sure that they put in recommendations, and we just had the job fair last week on Wednesday. So it hasn't been but a couple of days. So they're probably, if they were put in, if recommendations were put in, we would still be processing those folks because they probably wouldn't have completed their background checks yet. So I do know that the custodians, they put in at least 2 or 3 recommendations from the job fair. And the interesting thing is they also had a couple folks come in who hadn't had a chance to come in and get interviewed. And they said, well, this is a great opportunity. We're here in the evening. And those folks said, yeah, this is great. And they came in and were able to complete their interviews as well. So custodial wise, I think we may have gotten maybe somewhere between maybe 4 and 6 more recommendations against those 10 that were still outstanding. I'm not sure about the 2 drivers that Lynn was able to talk to and to interview. I'd have to go back in and look. And then we had food services is always there. But of course, because they contract, we're not really privy to what they end up doing. But I do know that they had some people that they talked to. And then as far as EAs went that evening, we actually had a couple of our principals come by that night. And I know Jennifer Bartley actually interviewed, I don't know how many, Peggy, 2, at least a couple of people.
I think 2. Mm-hmm.
And so I'd have to follow up with her and see if she put in a recommendation for any of those. I would say altogether, we had at least 20 or 25 people come last Wednesday night. Would you say, Peggy, or more?
Mm-hmm. I think probably about 25. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, what they really like about it is they can come, they can ask questions. And number 2, what they really like is that they can sit down on one of our computers, they can fill out the application, and they have one of our HR staff there to assist them with completing the application. And that helps them a great deal. Some of them aren't really ready right at that moment to be interviewed because they might have more documents that they have to gather and upload to their application and stuff. But a lot of them, that's kind of what was holding them back from applying with us, was they were struggling a little bit with, Lynn just texted me and she said both, what did she say? Both driver applicants were put in for recommendations. So there you go, 2 more drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have to check on the EAs. But like I said, I really do think that a big part of this is that we get folks in and we sit with them and we help them through the application process.
Absolutely. And so it does sound like it was a good turnout and absolutely well worth doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know that a lot of them have to upload, and so that there'll be some people that can do on-site interviews. Are you able to do some of the on-site interviews without all the documentation so that when they do go home, they have a list of things that they could upload, but at least you have kind of a preliminary interview with them?
We could do a screening. It wouldn't be completely legal to interview somebody if they don't have a complete application.
Okay.
However, I will tell you, for example, custodians don't have anything that they have to upload. So the nice thing is the custodian can sit there and simply put in their information and they can be interviewed immediately. How drivers, for example, though, have to show that they have certain documents in order to be qualified to even be interviewed.
Okay.
And we wouldn't be able to do a full interview, but
Right.
we can certainly do a screening and see if we can set up an interview for, maybe a day or two later or something like that. And
Yeah,
that must be what Lynn did, because she was able to recommend both people.
especially in the evening, since they're able to come in the evening, it's sometimes tough for some other people to be able to come in during the
Right.
workday. So that if you actually had them there and able to do some of that preliminary work, that
Yeah.
does sound like it works well. So that's great. And so I'll mention this later, but I know with the EAs, and because Dr. Cleveland had mentioned it, we probably should have done, or maybe we can still look at doing a resolution for EA pay. Because
that would be great,
We can do that
because
still.
well, we're at the absolute minimum right now. No experience, brand new EA. We're at about $13.70 an hour, and we would certainly like to get much better than that. We appreciate our EAs to no end. Our EAs are a vital part of our district. And, we would encourage anybody that would like to come and work with us to, come and talk to us. If we do, as Dr. Cleveland said, we offer a differential for those folks working with those children who need special care. I recognize that we certainly need to work on that pay.
Definitely with the state level on this, because $13.50 right now is not much to some people, because well, I should probably put this word that right now fast food is paying that because they are desperate for workers. So you're starting to see, I think Walmart has put up their, bumped up their pay. Walmart, Target, a lot of these ones have gone up, and these are people that are with our children, and they should be definitely getting paid a lot more when they're working with the most precious resource that we have is our little ones. And so it's ridiculous that the state think that that's enough to be paying EAs or anybody that works within the school system with our children. I mean, why wouldn't they go somewhere else? You can, like I said, you can go work at Target. I think it's $15 or so an hour, and not having to worry about the little ones, and you're stocking or you're doing cash register. And I don't want to say anything's wrong with that, but I'm just just goes to show you with our pay is the state really needs to look at that. So hopefully we can look at that in the resolutions coming up. Thank you
for doing that.
Catherine. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add? I could see you came on.
Just a logistical thing. You can certainly add that tonight because you have that on the agenda. You would not have the written document in front of you, but you could certainly, as a board, specify what you would want to go in it and allow us then to go ahead and send it, because I think we are facing a deadline on time. But it would not be any kind of a violation, since it is an agenda item. You can modify and add to it, and if you'd like, we would be glad to do that, and then just send it out. If you want to have any changes put in, we could do that. But we could still handle that and have the board vote on it tonight and get it in on time. So that would be my suggestion, that you could go ahead and do that. And then my last comment is the whole piece in terms of providing for our schools is that we have to have competitive compensation, and it's in all areas, and it is important. I hope the state will take a look at what is a competitive salary, whether it's in technology or whether it's in custodial maintenance or whatever, because we need to be able to retain people. One of the biggest losses that we have, let me talk about custodial maintenance. They have a great program in the facilities department, and they put people through it and they train them, and there's quite a process. There's an opportunity for advancement. And then when people leave, we lose all of that training, all that time, effort, and money that went into that training walks right out the door. And that's true for bus drivers. They get trained for CDL and then they walk right out the door. So we're going to have to look at, as a state, what is fair compensation in order to have some stability. And until we have that, we're not going to have stability, because people will go on and find a better job because they have to support their families. And we understand and respect that. So I'm really hoping that they'll look at all levels, but I really hope that they'll look at our operational levels, maybe a little greater depth than they have in the past. Because right now, that's one of the areas that we are struggling in. And then the other is in special ed. And there is some, a lot of conversation going on in Santa Fe about whether there's going to have to be a differential for certain types of special ed teachers, because we just simply can't keep them in the state of New Mexico. We're not keeping them in Rio Rancho. We're not keeping them in the state. And what would that have to look like for certain types of classrooms that have very high need children that need very specialized care?
And I think you make a very good point. I think it's just all across the board what we've looked at. I mean, we've had to advocate for our teachers in the past doing resolutions with this, and then we bumped the pay for our transportation department, but it's just not enough to keep them, keep people here, because they can take that CDL and go and make considerably more money on the roads. So the state really has to look at, if we want to be able to, because all aspects of this, every single department is so important to educate our children. And you have to have the transportation, fully staffed, and, the paid well to keep them there, to get our children to and from school safely. And we need to have the EAs, here helping with our students. I mean, they all work together. Food service, you hear complaints about, why does it take so long to do this? Or, why the transportation, are we struggling so much with them being delayed and all that? And it is because we just don't have the staff, and that's, in the looks, the state, we're just not paying enough. And until they actually take a look at the whole thing, we're just not, as the state, we're just not going to be able to keep doing this.
All right. Well, thank you. And so, yeah, we can look at that in our resolution with our resolutions as they come up. I think this is a really great discussion in between everyone. Noreen, I saw you. Did you want to add anything? I just kind of saw you come on for a moment. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything.
No, I didn't have anything to add. I agree totally with what Catherine is saying. And I think we have to be realistic in what we're offering people.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mike, on your side?
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and doing this. Appreciate it. Right. So we will move into our student supports. We have Renee Saucedo, our secondary school improvement officer, Erin Morin, our director of assessment, on to present.
All righty. Madam President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, we're excited to be here today to talk about a few of the student supports that we're going to have for the year 21 and 22. And I'm going to let Erin start with her part of it.
Okay, well, first I want to say thank you, Madam President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the board. I appreciate your time this evening. I'd like to also recognize Dr. Happy Miller for her support in building these reports. This endeavor has taken collaboration and a hefty amount of work. I turned my video on and I am not seeing that I'm visible. Are you seeing me?
Erin, it might be because of your internet connection. I would just go ahead and if it goes off or leave it off, that way we can hear you good.
Okay.
That might be why. It might just be shutting off on its own. So.
Okay, great. So I apologize about that, but I'll continue. Can we go to the first slide? I included this slide to demonstrate the sheer amount of pathway options students have at the high school level for graduation assessment to meet the criteria that the state has placed. So the state has given 5 content area assessment goals for students to meet, and this is one criteria plus the coursework that the students have to manage in order to graduate. So I'm not going to cover this in detail. It is on the New Mexico Public Education Department website. It is public resource. I just want it as a demonstration of the variety and number of options, because that is part of what drove the RADA department in creating the reports for the high schools. The next slide, please. Okay, so over the past couple of years, RADA has been developing 3 reports to support our schools, our high schools specifically, in analyzing data to support the high school students in their journey, ensuring they're able to meet the assessment criteria and just being able to manage the data in a useful, meaningful way. So the first report is the summary report. And this report shows the district and high school balance sheet, if you will, on supporting students in meeting these content areas. I took current data to demonstrate for you just the impact, honestly, of the COVID pandemic on our assessments. As I'm sure you're aware, science is very low. If you see, there are many students at the senior level this year who have not met the science criteria. And that is purely to the fact that we were not able to provide the opportunity for these students to test in science. So the reports are doing what they're meant to do, to show a quick view of needs and accomplishments, and these can be drilled down further into student lists and also by content. Next slide, please. This is an example of a drill down off of the summary report, and this provides the user information on the content specifically. For example, I pulled up reading in this example, and it shows the pathways that the students are leveraging, which are the most popular pathways. This example is from a few years back, and it shows the Tamala Park pathway. It is an assessment that is required by the state and federal government, so naturally it's going to be highly populated. We had over 1,000 of our high school seniors take this assessment, and then the second bar graph below it indicates, out of this Tamala Park assessment, what percentage of the students were able to meet the benchmark score and be proficient to meet their graduation criteria. And in this example, 79% of the seniors met the criteria in the reading through this assessment. That's just an example of the summary. So the second report we created, next slide, is a student list report. And this report, I feel, will be used probably the most at the district level, high school level, excuse me. And this provides the end user, the assistant principal and counselors, student list by content of every student at their high school, what assessment they have met and which they still need to work towards. This is a very useful tool in the sense that it's a lot of students and a lot of assessments, and it provides an export that is filterable and usable for planning and support purposes. This is also a report that can drill down and filter. Next slide. I have filtered it by content. You can filter it by grade level and etc., but I chose to filter by content reading, and it will show the student assessment pathway score. For instance, the student in row 1 has taken the PSAT and Tamala Park. The student has met both of those assessment criteria. The blue indicates they've met it, and the red means they're still working towards that assessment. This is just a drill down without benchmark scores or dates, which will come in the final report. If you would change a slide. And the final report is the most data dense. This is a report that the counselors, IEP meetings with parents, and the principals will use really when they're having face-to-face conversations on pathways. It shows the entire journey the student has traveled in the assessment arena in high school. I pulled up a student that has only met social studies, indicating in the blue check mark. And all of the assessments show how many attempts the student has taken, the last date of the attempt, the benchmark score they're shooting for to achieve or exceed, and then the final score is the student score. This report can be drilled down, hovered over, and show additional information like titles of the assessment, and it can go to other support screens to help the student and the counselor or IEP team get more specific even from this. So our whole goal in this is to support our high school staff in supporting the students, to free up time so they don't have to look through copious amounts of data. It's real-time usable data that they can pull up at their ease and need. So we're super excited about it, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share.
You know, I would like to give you my perspective on this. When I see how easy this is, it just almost makes me want to cry because I know that Erin has spent probably a year working on pulling all of this information together and doing whatever she does in the background. But as someone who was in the schools and in charge of the graduation competencies, I had notebooks and notebooks of, you know, different exams that kids had taken. And you wouldn't, let's see, what is the passing on that exam? So did he pass that one? No, but he's taken this one. And it was so complicated. And the counselors had their own way of doing it. And it's such an important amount of data that really in years other than these years determines whether a student gets their diplomas or not, because you have to hit those 5 graduation assessments. So when I see that the student list report with the student's name and the green checks and the red X's, it just makes my heart so happy, because I know that this is going to make people's jobs in the schools so much easier to keep track of all of this data and whether students are have passed those graduation competencies or not. So I know the schools are very appreciative of all of the work that RADA has done to get this out. I can't explain how happy and excited they must be to see this ready to go. So thank you, Erin.
Thank you. It's been fun.
This is kind of a break. I don't know if anyone has questions as far as this part of the information goes. It really is just about how staff can look up information for students.
Does anyone have any questions up to this point? I do have to say, I share your excitement. This is really cool. Like as she was going through it, as Erin was going through it, and that it is really cool to have it all there and to be able to see it all. So really, really great job on that.
Yeah, to be able to pull it up kid by kid or in a group, you can get so much information from this. It's exciting.
It's really cool.
All righty, Claudia, next slide, please. So demonstration of competency. The PED put out a memo at the beginning of the year that basically speaks to the demonstration of competency allowances for students graduating in 2022 and 2023. Due to the pandemic-related interruptions to standardized testing, PED allows the continuation of passing of required coursework to demonstrate competency for cohort 2022 and 2023 graduates as allowed for cohort 2021. Basically, what this is saying is all of that work that Erin just did on all of the tests, we'll be able to use that in a couple of years because current students, the class of 2022, and then current juniors who will be 2023 will not have to pass those 5 big courses or 5 assessments to be able to graduate. Just passing their coursework will show competency. So that will definitely be a big help because as you saw, what was it, like 95% of our current seniors haven't even had the opportunity to test in science. And so when they haven't had the opportunity, then you're pulling them out of class to try to test them. And if they don't pass right away, you're pulling them out again. So it really is just kind of a downward spiral. So it was very nice that that PED decided to do this. And I'm excited that they put out this year and next year so we don't have to wait until the last minute like we did last year. We do have a few extra supports that we're going to look at doing. Claudia, you can change the slides, please. Like last year, we're going to look at allowing a waiver of Rio Rancho public school credits from 26 to the state required 24. And I would like you to know, last year we had 1,182 graduates. Only 80 waivers were requested. This is 6.7% of the graduates. Of those 80 waivers, 25 still earned 26 or more credits. So those students may have not had the fine arts credit or the tech credit or maybe all of the science credit they need, but they had still earned 26 or more credits. So that means that only 65 students of the 1,182 graduated with less than our required 26 credits. And that's approximately 5.5% of the students that graduated. Of those 65, 32 requested waivers of just electives. So that's about 2.7% of the total. 29 requested a half science credit be waived, which is 2.4%. And 19 requested the full elective science be waived, which was 1.6%. When I talk to the counselors about this, I make sure and tell them we don't want to do very many of these. This is only for students who absolutely will not graduate without this help. Many students who didn't pass courses last semester or last year, when we were virtual, could use this help. So hopefully this will help students make sure that they graduate. The Algebra 2 waiver exemption is one that's always on the books. This isn't anything new. Last year, they let the waiver, you could actually sign the waiver up until December. This is just the same waiver that PED always has. And if by the end of your 10th grade year, it's part of your next step plan, then you can have this waiver. So this really isn't anything new, but it is a senior support that's there. Because we were in a virtual situation for the majority of the year last year, students do not have to have an advanced placement or honors or dual credit course because we did the distance learning. So unless a student is coming in from another state that didn't do distance learning, all seniors will already have that requirement. We are once again offering credit recovery courses for free. We are having those courses on all of the campuses this year. So students can just stay after school for their credit recovery if they need that. And then also students, so this would be seniors only who have late arrival or early release. If they have room in their schedule and they need credit recovery and there's room in the class, we would be able to give that during the day. So I hope that that makes sense. There's not always room in the classes, but if there is and a student has late arrival or early release, we can place that into the classes. Next slide, please. For all students, we're offering free credit recovery. We're also offering tutoring, and this is at all levels, elementary, middle, and high schools. The schools are, running their own tutoring programs. And to kind of help with the SEL side of it, we are paying club sponsors if they already do not receive a stipend. And on the next slide, it speaks to, for credit recovery, how we're paying for everything. We're using some of the secondary learning center funds from previous years and also ESSER 3 money. For tutoring and for club sponsors, we're using extended learning money. All of this is wonderful. We're not finding as many staff members that want to do credit recovery or tutoring. So we're still working on trying to get staff members so that we can have these programs at all of the schools. So those are a few of the supports that we have in this year, and I am open for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate that. We'll go through Catherine. Catherine Collin?
No, thank you. But thanks for the report, Renee.
Thank you.
Wynn Coleman?
No, I'm glad, especially to see that there's that support for that waiver, which is, I know, not something. I mean, the 24 credits is applicable at Independence. It's just nice to see that that's an option at the comprehensive high school. So I'm glad to see that. But thanks.
Thank you.
And then Noreen, Scott?
I think it's really, really commendable, the amount of time and energy and thought that has gone into this to the credit recovery program. I'm really impressed that we're trying so hard to get children through school. And I'm very grateful to everyone who's working extra hard to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to second what Noreen said too. I think it's just really important for us to just be sensitive to our student body. We want to have good expectations, but for some of our most, highly achieving students, last year was hard, and we saw a lot of those students struggle. And so it's nice that we can, be thoughtful of them and help them to kind of get through this last year of high school. So thank you. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything? I just don't want to miss you if you have anything else you want to add.
Just a couple of quick things. On the first presentation, I noticed none of you were crying over the new tool, but we were.
I know.
But what it really represents, so I want to be sure, it is a tremendous amount of work that's gone into this. What it represents is the gift of time. And it provides really valuable information that people have without spending hours and hours and hours doing it themselves. And I think we all feel today, what's the best gift we can give? We don't want to give up on the compensation, as we said before, but time is a compensation as well. And so when we give people the tools and the time to be able to do their job, it makes their job so much easier and much more effective. So that's really what we're giving as a result of this. What the staff is giving that's worked on this is ability to get that valuable information, make better decisions because you've got better data, and giving them an opportunity to not have to spend their own time doing that. And I think it has been more than well received, and it's just an incredible gift to the staff. So I want to thank everybody that was part of that effort. It is a tool that is, I think, extremely exciting. The second thing I think is, and we are going to have to think about after this year, where do we want to go? And one of the things that we want to look at long-term in terms of graduation requirements, and, as we move into our new strategic plan, that's going to be the opportune time to start looking at what do we want to do? Do we want to go to the state minimum? We've never been there before. And yet there are some other options now that may make as much sense. For example, career technical, or maybe we need to just rethink the whole structure of graduation. What is it that we want to achieve and accomplish? So I think after we get through accreditation, and we start looking at strategic planning, this whole idea of what graduation should look like, what are the programs we want to have, how do we want to proceed, it is a great time to have that conversation. And then my last comment is, the worst thing that ever happens to you as a high school principal and a superintendent sometimes is you get right to graduation and you find a student that doesn't have one of the credits or is missing something. And our folks work so hard to make sure that never, ever happens. But occasionally it does, because someone's moved in from out of state, they come from another place, and all of a sudden there we are, and students are getting ready to graduate. This tool will help eliminate that, keep that from happening. And so it also impacts student lives to be sure that we get students ready so that when it's graduation, they're ready to go. And there aren't any of those kinds of miscommunications. We do a great job for the kids that are with us from day one all the way through in high school. Where we have the challenges is when students move in from other places and their credit requirements are a little different. But I can tell you, our counselors just make sure that hardly ever, ever happens. It's only happened a few times since I've been superintendent. So they do a fabulous job with it. This is just one more safety factor to be sure that we are ready for each student to graduate. So I want to thank everybody that's worked on this, and certainly Erin, the work that she's done, and then Renee really looking at what are the supports that we need to have in place to get through this still very difficult year. We're finding this year is just almost as difficult as last year. So how do we get through it? And then at that point, reassess where it is we want to go. And maybe rethink a lot of these things that may shape our district's future and our children's future.
Thank you, Dr. Kluner. Actually, you got me really excited to kind of look at those things and think about them differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. So thank you. Thank you. Anything else from the board? I just want to double check. Okay. Thank you so much.
I did have a
Oh,
quick
yeah. Go ahead,
question.
Catherine.
So I'm sorry, I missed part of the presentation because my computer locked up. I had to switch computers. So we're still doing certificates of completion, correct?
Well, we won't have to this year because if without the testing, if you've passed all the credits that you need, you've passed your graduation assessments. So there's no need for certificate of completions. Everyone will get a diploma. It's really when you have those 5 tests that you have to pass. If you've gotten all of your credits, but you didn't pass the math assessment, then that's a certificate of completion.
Right. And so since they're kind of waiving that, but do you, and maybe Dr. Cleveland, you might know, are they going to be changing this up, the certificate of completions going forward, do you think? Because I know that was one of the things we had some students that struggled to pass some of those tests, and some unfortunately did get the certificate of completion instead of the diploma. And that was really hard on those students. And so we know every 4 years or every 8 years, things change. Are we going to start seeing a change with this again?
I think that they're looking at a variety of alternative assessments of local demonstrations of competency. So they're looking at alternatives. What we did last year when they went to those just passing the courses, we went back to the students who did have certificate of completions and gave them diplomas through last year's class because they no longer needed that. So they would be able to qualify for those diplomas. So hopefully we don't have any on the books at this point that have certificate of completions. We tried to contact all of the students that we could.
From how previous that got the that we went far back?
I don't think we can go more than 5 years. I'm not sure how far back we went.
So then you were able to, those ones, go ahead and get them that waiver and actually issue them a diploma.
Correct.
Okay.
If we could get a hold of them.
Last year. That was for last year.
Yeah, last.
But could I add? Well, I think I heard your question, Board Member Cullen, is the state looking at other alternatives? And as Renee said, there are some portfolios which we're not excited about. Be very hard to that would be a nightmare that you will pass on to the staff to have to work on. There is at the state level a really rethinking, and at the national level, of the high stakes testing, period, and looking at whether we go back to passing the course and that being sufficient, or whether there are some other kinds of assessments. I do think that there is an effort to really look at rethinking the high stakes testing, the end of year assessments that students do well in their courses and then for whatever reason don't pass the test and can't get a diploma. And so it'll depend. I think we knew where we were going with the previous secretary. I don't know where we are with the new secretary and what his thoughts are on that. But I do believe that there is that openness to really reevaluating this whole testing paradigm. You want enough testing that you know where your children do well, and you need to know where they need work, and you need to know if they're progressing. But it had turned into something much more than that. And I think that, they're rethinking that, how much is too much? How much do we need to be able to get a good snapshot, a good picture of what students are able to do? But when does it become so oppressive that it takes away from the classroom instruction time, and when it becomes an end to itself? And so I do believe there are going to be long-term some changes. I don't know what those are going to look like, but we've been told that they are looking at reassessing a lot of things. Assessment is not going away. It never will. We don't want it to go away. But we want it to be more manageable and let it to be more helpful rather than more punitive, and to find a way to help drive student achievement and get students to do better rather than to be perceived by them and their families as punishment, which is not exactly what the goal should be. So the dilemma is, how do you set high standards? How do you keep those high standards? How do you test for those high standards and yet not make it an oppressive system that actually discourages students from being able to do their best? So I don't know if that helps answer it, but we are told that there are changes coming from the state and federal level.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we've discussed in the past is, we have high standards in our district. We know that other districts were doing some other alternative demonstrations that we just didn't really look at because of our high standards. And of course, we are at 26 credits. We've been 26 credits versus the 24. So with all this is, we're going to see more changes, I think, within the next couple of years, and something that the board really needs to kind of take a look at, because I think the problem is even if we're going to give them tutoring, we're going to give them help, I think that this is going to be a long-term effect that what has happened in the last couple of years with online. And so we've really got to look as the school board going forward on where you kind of want to be with. We want to keep that high standards, but we also have to look at that. We've gone through a pandemic. We've had a lot of issues with even the high performing students really struggled with this. And, unfortunately, some of the other ones that we had people that weren't even able to go to school. We've got that across the state. So anyway, just going forward, that's something for the board to keep in mind when you're looking at this. Thanks.
And the high standards may not be the right standards either. And I think that's the other thing that we'll be looking at, are they the right standards? And I'm just going to pick on one, and I'm not even taking a position on it. So I will make really clear I'm not. But a lot of discussions going on as to whether we really need Algebra 2 for all kids, or are there some better maths that help prepare kids, particularly those going into the trades, that is still high level math, but different math. And math is more applicable to the jobs they're going to do. Well, that's not lowering your standards, but it's saying there may be a different standard that is rigorous too. And so it really is a time to, I think we're really at a pivotal point right now to really look at What are the standards? Are they the right standards? And where do we need that flexibility? Exactly as you said, that flexibility to adjust to the situations that our students are facing. And there isn't one of us that's, in the administrative team right now isn't feeling the pressure that's coming from the kids and the families and the staff. It isn't easy at all yet. And we're going to have to continue to just kind of work through this year and try to keep our balance and then look to the future. But on the other hand, maybe this was a good thing as we really reassess what is important and where we want to go. Maybe this is going to be a good thing in the long run, where we really look better at what kids need individually rather than abstract, this is the same for everyone and this is what everyone has to do and this will look exactly the same. I don't know that it really does have to look exactly the same.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I had something stuck over my microphone button, so I couldn't get back to it. Thank you. Is there anything else from the board? Are we good on this? All right. Thank you, Renee and Erin, again. Thank you so much for that presentation. Okay. All right, so for our next item is to approve the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be pulled off the consent for discussion, or is there a motion?
No, I do need to pull off a couple of things. I just had a couple of questions. Arlene's aware that I'm going to be asking some. So I'll try to make it really quick. It was just some clarification.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
No, so it's it's on the budget transfer reports as well as information. And I'm sorry, I'm working off of one computer now. The bar 31,400 of the 150,000 funds.
Okay, everything else is good. Is there anything else that needs to be pulled up? We'll put that into our business, which is coming up here in just a second. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull that into business and we'll approve the consent without. Catherine, do you want to make the motion since you have that kind of written down, the ones that we're pulling out? I don't know if that makes sense or if I'm doing that correctly. You're muted. I don't know if you do that.
Sorry. Lauren, I think that we can just, because it's just a couple of questions, I could just ask her that on this portion, correct? I don't need to move it to full business, do I?
Yeah, Madam President, Member Cullen, I think you could if you just have a couple quick questions.
Yeah, it was just a couple of questions. It wasn't something that I wanted to pull and not approve. I just had a couple of questions on it. So
okay.
I think that's fine as long as you're okay with that, Madam President.
I am good with that. That is fine with me.
Okay. So,
go ahead, Arlene.
Arlene. So the quick questions that I had, I was just trying to understand this. So on the bar that they're per PED, the bonds did not sell in June for the 2021 direct appropriation project, and so we're decreasing the bar for that of 150, and it's in this year's budget. Can you explain? I guess the bond was it. So they're saying that the bond it wasn't sold. I guess I just kind of didn't quite understand that. If you could expand on that further.
Sure. Good evening, Board Member Cullen. This is Arlene Manzanares, Executive Director of Finance. And just to clarify, so when PED is doing their special capital outlay and the districts around the state are applying for direct appropriations, they are using some of their bond sales to be able to fund these. So this is something they determined the amount that they're going to give to all the districts last year. And they go ahead and approve around the state the direct appropriations to each one of the districts. So in June, their bonds did not sell. And so the overall state had to take a decrease in those special appropriations that we had already budgeted for this year that were transferred from last year to this year. So it affected our district by 150,000. And we usually get direct appropriations for special capital outlay projects for our facilities department and at times our IT department. We are very fortunate though in our district because the appropriations that we had last year for certain projects, and Melanie might be able to give you a little bit more information on this, but I know her and her department and facilities did such a terrific job that they were able to come in under budget for those projects. So actually it's not really affecting us overall on our special capital outlay. I hope that helps.
So we'll eventually get it. Is that since we're decreasing it?
We are decreasing, and I would say that no, we will not get that additional 150,000.
Okay. And then the other one that I sent to you, just on the budget transfers report, I was just kind of looking at this. So on August 5th, it shows that there was bond budget corrections, and it was, so I was just kind of wanting to, on page 3 and page 4, was there like a change that, and we probably talked about it before, I just don't recall when we were looking at this.
No, that's perfectly fine. So to explain those two budget transfers, again, let me take you back into like March and April of last year when we're trying to build our budget and plan for our bond projects. Again, Melanie does a terrific job in facilities in trying to figure out what amount of budget she's going to need in her bond projects. And as we discussed in the finance committee meeting, there has been quite a shift with our HVAC projects. And also that she's had such a difficult time with supplies and all of that. So the HVAC projects have been quite hectic for her. And so when she was building the budget, since she doesn't know exactly how much budget she's going to need for each one of the HVAC projects, she was putting the bond funds into what we call a roll-up account. And now that we are into the school year and she has a better idea of her HVAC projects and what's going to be covered by bond, what's going to be covered by CARES funds, then this budget transfer was to actually move the funds from the roll-up accounts to the actual school level and for either professional design or construction, that type of thing.
So this was basically for the HVAC?
Correct.
Okay, because that was where I was a little confused because it was talking about the design and okay. So I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it. That's all I had.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
I was trying to get a hold of you before the meeting, but I
Yes.
apologize. I was unable to earlier. Thank you.
Sorry. You're welcome.
Okay, that's good. Anything else? All right.
So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So we have a second?
This is Secretary Scott. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Captain Collin and a second by Secretary Scott. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us on this?
Yes, I can. Vice President Morgan is not present. Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes. Sorry.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're going to move into business. I would like to take a 5-minute break unless you guys want to just plow through it. I'm okay with that too. But I'd really like to refill my water cup here. So Is that okay? Or if you guys really would like to just plow through, we can do that too. Okay. Let's go ahead and we'll take a 5-minute recess. So that will put us back right at about 8:20 to get back on.
This is your 1-minute warning if you want to stick to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think 5 will be good as long as everyone gets on. Thank you, everyone.
20 seconds. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7.
Okay, our meeting is now called back to order. Thank you, everyone. The smoke in the air has been killing me, and I ran out of water, and that was not a good thing. So I appreciate everyone just taking a quick break for us. I know that these last items are actually really important items and items that we need to, that have a date on them. So we really do need to get through them. So we are now in our business portion of our meeting. We will start with something easy, to consider the approval of the unapproved meeting minutes for 8/23/2021. Are there any changes that anyone saw that needs to take place on those minutes?
This is Secretary Noreen Scott. I move approval of the minutes of August 23rd, 2021 meeting.
Okay, we have a second.
This is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Secretary Scott and a second by Catherine Cullen. And Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, ma'am. Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Board Member Cullen.
Yes.
Board Member Coleman.
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion is approved 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Item B, to consider the approval of Joint Powers Agreement, JPA, with the New Mexico School of the Deaf. And we have Jerry Reeder, our Executive Director of Special Services, on to present.
President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. I'm Jerry Reeder. I'm the Executive Director of Special Services, and I bring forward to you the Joint Powers Agreement for Rio Rancho Public Schools and the New Mexico School for the Deaf preschool and kindergarten for the school year 21-22 for your approval. And I just want to give you a real quick rundown of what it's all about. Basically, these are students of our district. We get the funding, and then in turn, we pay New Mexico School for the Deaf $7,500 per student, plus we transport the students. New Mexico School for the Deaf provides all special education and related services and all their evaluations. And basically that is, in a nutshell, what our Joint Powers Agreement entails.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. We're grateful for the School of the Deaf. Anyone have questions or comments? Noreen Scott, anything?
No.
Okay. All right. Catherine Cullen? No. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. If anyone else has any questions, just let me know. Okay.
I move approval of the Joint Powers Agreement with the New Mexico School for the Deaf.
We have a motion by Secretary Scott. We have a second.
I second. Sorry, I'm using a different computer. It's harder to click on.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by Secretary Scott and a second by Catherine Cullen. Can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I can. Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Board Member Cullen.
Yes.
Board Member Coleman.
She may have had to step away. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. President Galbraith?
Yes.
Well, you want me to hang on here, or do you want to declare it passed?
Let's keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries 3-0. Okay. For our next item is to consider acceptance of grads program grant for 2020. Oh, sorry, Jerry. Thank you so much. By the way, I'm sorry. I think I'm like, sorry, Jerry. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. As I'm reading, I'm like, wait. Okay. I think the night is getting late. Okay. So now we're going to consider the acceptance of grads program grant for 2021-2022. We have Stephanie Moore, the principal of Independence High School, who we all love, and also Amy Guzzi, who's a grads teacher. So we are excited to have you both on.
Good evening, Madam President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the school board. I'm Stephanie Moore, the principal of Independence High School, and with me today is Amy Guzzi, our grads teacher, who is the lead state mentor teacher for the grads program, and also the state grads teacher of the year for the last 2 years. We're really lucky to have her as part of our program here. We're here to ask for your support for our grads, which stands for Graduation Reality and Dual Skills Grant. The program has been part of Rio Rancho Public Schools for the last 22 years. It has helped 768 of our teen parents in the district to obtain high school diplomas while providing high quality early head start for their children, focusing on school readiness. Students build skills in college and career readiness and parenting while developing plans for the future. Most of our students have gone on to pursue post-secondary education and training. We utilize this funding to provide high-quality educational experiences, resources to support our young families in establishing themselves as role models for their children and peers. Now, Amy has just a couple things for us today, too.
Hi, Madam President and Dr. Cleveland and members of the board. First of all, I'd just like to say I've really enjoyed being a part of this board meeting. I love when I'm able to attend them, and I just get excited to be a part of our district. I love all these things that we're getting to do and provide for our kids. Part of our grads program is developing positive parenting skills that is essential for our youngest Rio Rancho citizens. Grads helps enable our young parents in developing the supportive skills necessary to raise healthy, integrated children. And grads also supports both our young moms and our young fathers in developing parenting and employability skills. We have worked to develop a number of community partnerships in order to ensure that our young families have access to every opportunity possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your continued support, and we will stand for questions and comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Maybe I should clarify. This is a $10,000 grant for our program at our school. And Amy provides services not only to our young parents that are at Independence High School, but also case management services to any of our parents that attend at Rio, Cleveland, or Cyber.
All right, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. And Amy, I totally said your name wrong, so thank you for, which I've been doing all night, I feel like, to everyone, so thank you.
It's totally fine.
Thank you for being on. Okay, so really quick, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything before I go over to the board?
It's just a wonderful program, and it has had such great results and have been impacted student lives such a positive way. And the grants program at Independence is, of course, the best one in the state. So we're really proud of the program. But just looking at results, let's look at results. It's really delivered, and so I just want to thank everybody that's part of it, and strongly recommend that we continue to participate with grants.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. All right, any questions or comments from the board? Catherine?
Say it's a great program. So they're just amazing over there for what they do with our students. So thank you.
Thank you. And Noreen Scott?
No, I just move acceptance of the grads program grant for 2021-22.
Okay, we do have a motion. Wynn, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I mean, I always love the opportunity to just really say just how wonderful I think the different services are over at Independence, and having had the opportunity to sit and look at a presentation, even kind of to the state and what the grads program was doing, and just what Ms. Guzzi does for the students there is just absolutely incredible. And so on that note, I'll second the motion.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Noreen Scott and a second by Wynn Coleman. Kim, can you take, that's Catherine. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us, please?
Yes, ma'am. Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Board Member Cullen.
Yes.
Board Member Coleman.
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, and President Galbraith, I will need you to sign a document at some point in the next few days related to this.
Okay, sounds good. I will come by. Thank you. Okay, my notes are getting everywhere. Okay, so item D. So this is, we will, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. And thank you, Amy Guzzi. Guzzi, right? Guzzi, am I doing that right, Stephanie? Is that the?
Yeah, Guzzi.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Have a good night.
It's always wonderful to see you. Okay. So for our item D, it's to consider the resolutions that will go into the New Mexico School Board Association, which I believe is this week in the next, gosh, like Wednesday. Is it today? Oh, okay. Today. Oh my goodness. Today. Beth, how are we? Okay. So today, I'm guessing by midnight. So maybe we need to get out today before midnight. So we have Beth Pendergrass here who will be going through these resolutions. Beth, do you want to just go through each one and then we will go through and approve each one as we have them written? That was kind of what I understood what Dr. Cleveland was saying.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
So Beth Pendergrass, Chief Communication Strategy and Engagement Officer. Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. As Dr. Cleveland mentioned in her opening remarks, we have 5 resolutions for the board's review this evening. Kim did verify that these are due today. However, she also let the NMSBA know that we were meeting this evening. These are the resolutions requested by the board at the last meeting, and a big thank you to Kim for putting them together. So our first resolution is 21-003, High School Career and Technical Education, and I'll stand for any comments on that. If there are any changes.
Okay, board, any changes or anything that you saw that needed to take place on that resolution? Okay. And I have to say too, Kim really did, she did a very nice job writing these up. She really did a great job. Okay. So we can go, do you want to go to the next one or do you want us to just go ahead and? Okay.
We're good. Let's go 21-004, funding to hold harmless for declining enrollment arising from the COVID-19 emergency.
Any questions or changes that you all felt? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up.
Okay. Next is 21-005, student transportation funding.
Questions on that one? Item 3.
No, but I really loved, all right, now I got to find it. This is great too. I just have to say that Kim did an awesome job on all of them, but the transportation, I just have to give kudos on that one when we go there.
All right, next one is 21-006, adequate support and funding for school mental health and behavioral health services.
Any questions, board? Okay.
All right, and our last one, 21-007, input into uses of federal pandemic and infrastructure funding.
I think we're good. Okay.
And then I know that we had a final request earlier for EA resolution. You know, we can always do a resolution at a later date and submit it. It wouldn't be an NMSBA one, but what do you want to do with that, President Galbraith?
Let me ask, I think Catherine was the one who first brought that up. Catherine and and actually, why don't we get recommendation real quick from Dr. Cleveland and then we'll go over to Catherine, if that's okay. Go ahead, Dr. Cleveland.
I think what they would allow us to do, but we could check with Mr. Gann. You know how they're dummy bills? We could submit a dummy resolution. Just tell him what's coming and tell him the board decided to do that this evening. I believe that Mr. Gann will probably allow us a day or two flexibility to get it in. If he doesn't, we could certainly do it later on our own. But I think if we tell him what the bill is and that we'll get it in and that the board simply decided this evening to add it, I believe he will work with us. So my recommendation is we try to work with Joe Gann and submit a dummy, a dummy resolution like you do a dummy bill in the legislative session, and tell him what it's on compensation, and see if he will help us with that. I think he will.
Yeah, I think you're right. Go ahead, Catherine.
I'll say he will. I mean, they're not meeting right away for their resolution and policy committee. So yeah, I mean, he gives that deadline, but I know that he'll be fine with it for submitting it late. Just let him know, give him a heads up that what we'll be doing. I'm pretty sure that, they'll be flexible on that. But even with this resolution with the EAs, I mean, yeah, to me, I mean, we're just not paying them, like even custodials, like I said, transportation, bus drivers. So I don't know if you want to look more than just EAs, but as well as some of the, the other staff. Because I mean, it's hard to get custodial workers too. Like I said, people are competing for employees right now. And it's very competitive. And if somebody else is offering a bit more, how much is the custodians being paid right now?
Gosh, I don't remember. Is Mike still on? Chavez, he might remember.
I know our bus drivers are about 16, 17, if I'm remembering.
I think they're
right.
about 17. Are they at 17 now, bus drivers, 1750?
No, this is Mike Baker, COO. They start at about right around 1650.
1650, okay.
And then do we know custodians, Mike Chavez?
I'd have to look at custodians. Mike, do you remember what we ended up with custodians? I want to say 14.
Yeah, I think it's about 1450, but that's
about 1450 for the very minimum, brand new starting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was about, if I remember from it was about 1350 for our EAs right now. So
About 1370, yeah.
So perhaps what we could do is do educational assistance and operational, specified operational areas. If they look at the compensation package for all of those. I know that there are several districts that are still submitting this year for bus drivers. And so by going with that larger operational staffing, I think that, we would encourage them to look at staffing in those areas and in educational assistance.
We've also struggled with security this year too. They're paid pretty low, the unarmed. I think 1325 or something like that.
Yeah. They're operational.
Yeah.
So maybe what we would do, Beth, is a good idea, is that we just list all of them. Safety and security, bus drivers, custodial maintenance, and just list them out. That looking at all our operational areas, because we're not competitive, in any of the operational areas with the private sector.
Yeah, just because they work with our children, and it's just a shame that you can go somewhere else at like I said, at a retail store or something like that, get paid more, and we just need to look at the state to looking at bumping up this pay. I mean, they're going to be going somewhere else to get some of these jobs, and they really need to look at this. So I think it's pretty much with all the operational, absolutely. And because we're going to continue, I think, to have shortages. We've had these shortages over all the, since I've been on the board in different aspects. Bus drivers always, but EAs are pretty significant this year. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know what anybody else is thinking.
But when we're recruiting and we're on the other side of it, we emphasize the really nice things. You get to work with wonderful staff in the schools.
Yes.
You get nice vacation breaks. And there are some things to actually, to very much commend those jobs. And it's also our responsibility to be sure that we put those out. And I think that's one of the great things of the job fair, is an opportunity to sell all the positives. And we've been very successful with that in some other areas. I would commend Joe Sanchez for doing a really good job in terms of doing that to recruit nurses. And we're pretty much full, by doing a combination of the two, looking at compensation, but also stressing the positives. And
Absolutely.
there are many positives.
And I absolutely agree, because a lot of people don't look at that. Sometimes we need to get that out more to people. And I think that's why the job fair is great, just because they're looking at just the dollar amount that they get paid, but the benefits are great working for school districts. But I'll be quiet and let you guys all.
Now, any other comments from Noreen or Wynn? I think that those were good. That was a good cover. Dr. Cleveland, do you feel like that's good enough to put a resolution together for that? Okay. Okay. All right. So I think that's on that one. Any other questions or concerns? And we can go ahead and create motion. What I'm kind of wondering if we can just do a motion and name each of them, or if you guys want to go through them individually and have a vote on each one. But I think we could name them each out, and then Lauren, can we do that? Can we name each number and the name and create a motion for all of them to approve?
Can we just do a motion?
Madam President, I think you can, as long as it's clear that you're the motion is as long as it's clear in the motion that you're approving all of them. I think it's fine. I don't think you necessarily need to name them all out, but that certainly would make it very clear. Hope that's helpful.
Yes.
Before we go and vote, I just have to give this to Kim or who, if she posts. So this is on the transportation. I just love this. The state's financial situation is now such that there's no excuse for underfunding student transportation for some districts, especially when other districts are in fact overfunded. And I absolutely love that statement there. So thank you.
Yeah, that's good. I kept reading through them like, that was so good. That was so good. All right, Noreen, did you want to
this
create?
is Secretary Scott. I think we should just say that we're approving resolution 21-007, and that includes everything that's on there. And then we put a caveat to add the additional resolution that Catherine Cullen has suggested.
Okay. Lauren, is that making sense? I don't know if that made sense to me, but it is also almost 9 o'clock.
I think the motion approving all 5 of the resolutions is fine. I'm a little more tentative on the idea of approving a resolution that hasn't been drafted yet.
Okay. All right.
And it's not on the agenda. My recommendation would be that you direct the superintendent to prepare another resolution, and then the board acts on it at a future time. If the school board association is not going to be taking these up anytime soon, then perhaps that could be done in the next meeting.
Okay.
That might be too late, I'm thinking.
This is Board Member Coleman. I'm just trying to find, I don't know if waiting will make it too late. That's my concern, but I'm just checking to see if I have anything in emails from NMSBA.
Well, and we could get on just Friday for 5 minutes, like if we want,
And approve it.
And just approve it. I don't know what your schedules look like, but we could just do, it would take 2 to 5 minutes to approve it.
I know that's not as convenient as doing it tonight, but I think the Open Meetings Act requires it.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so I will make a motion to approve resolution 21-007.
We need to go through all of them. Do you want to name them all out, Noreen?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll deal with 7. Let's do that, and then we can create another one.
Yeah.
All right. We have a motion for resolution 21-007, which is input to uses of federal pandemic infrastructure. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Second from Catherine Cullen. Kim, can you take a roll call for us?
Yeah, let me get there
Okay.
real quick. Okay, so we have
Noreen
a
Scott.
motion to approve just this resolution, right?
Yeah, we'll do the others in here in just a second.
Okay. Okay, I think we're there now. Secretary Scott made the motion, correct? Who seconded
Correct.
that?
And Catherine Collins seconded.
Okay,
Is that a word?
thank you.
Teaming it.
Sorry, I was a little confused there. Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith,
Yes.
and that motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try to create a resolution. And Lauren, you can just stop me if this isn't going to work. Okay, I would like to move to approve Resolution 21-003, High School Career Technical Education, to approve Resolution 21-004, Funding Hold Harmless for Declining Enrollment arising from COVID-19 emergency, Resolution 21-005, Student Transportation Funding, and Resolution 21-006, Adequate Support and Funding for School Mental and Behavioral Health Sciences. Do we have a second?
This is Secretary Scott. I second.
We have a motion by me and then a second by Secretary Scott. And Kim, will you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, ma'am. Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Board Member Cullen.
Yes.
Board Member Coleman.
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now for our next, we will be going over policies. We have, for our first one, will be policy 750 for the COVID pandemic. Lauren Hatch, our general counsel, who we're always so grateful to have with us on these meetings, as you can see, is here to present. And also Mike Chavez, our executive director of human resources, I believe, is presenting.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, I'm Lauren Hatch, the district's general counsel. Glad to be here tonight to talk about proposed policy changes. Madam President, I think I'm listed on all 5 of those policy changes. Mm-hmm. And I believe we also have the relevant district administrators as well. If it's okay with you, I would just like to kind of just walk through them quickly and or answer questions, whatever is most appropriate. And then the district administrators can pipe in with any comments they have, or if there's questions that you would like them to answer, if that's okay.
That sounds great.
So I'm going to start actually on the red-lined version of policy 750. In the board materials, I have it as page 87, but it's policy 750 red-lined starting with page 1. You may recall policy 750 was passed, I want to say around October it was September of last year at the height of the pandemic. These were some temporary provisions to allow the district to deal with responding to the COVID pandemic, and particularly dealing with health orders from the governor and the Department of Health, and also toolkits that we were receiving from the Department of Education. We propose making some changes to those temporary provisions, beginning at the beginning, actually just referencing that we're responding to the toolkits that were prepared by PED for the 21-22 school year. I think at first we thought we would just list out the toolkits that were responsible, but I think since we started working on this, there's been a total of 5 new toolkits. The most recent was actually released today that is effective tomorrow. I don't think that there's any changes from what we're doing here, but we'll keep a sharp eye on it. At this pace, we might have a few more by the end of the month. Making it clear that we're responding to toolkits issued by PED, that's what the kind of preamble's about. Paragraph A revises the leave policies in line with what the toolkit provides, and that is essentially that we need to be sensitive to employees who need leave related to COVID. The FMLA and the Americans with Disability Act are the standards that we would use. And then in the second paragraph, in the budget bill this year, it said that all school districts have to provide the leave that was provided by the federal government in its relief bills in order for our budget to be approved. And this provision here allows us to, or directs the district to do that. It's up to 10 days of sick leave at the regular rate of pay for each employee. Any questions on that? We strike out the rest of it. That's not relevant to the toolkit now. We didn't change paragraph B or section B. We're not currently providing health childcare because we're not in remote or hybrid. However, the staff thought leaving this in here would be a good idea because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. No changes to the attendance in section C. Except for that last part that was struck out of C is actually added down further. We just decided that it needed to be moved down further. It wasn't moved the last time that we added stuff to it. Subparagraph D has to do with surveillance testing. We've been doing surveillance testing very consistently for the last year. The most recent change requires that staff that are not vaccinated be tested every week, which is about 1,000 employees is my understanding. And then also that we have to have a surveillance testing program for unvaccinated students, but that's voluntary. It's mandatory that we have a program, but it's voluntary that students participate in it. And I think that's it for the changes in 750. I stand for any questions.
Any questions from the board? I think we're good, Lauren. So do you want to just keep going through them then?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
The next policy is 213. With the policy changes that are being proposed tonight, there's actually a couple different types. The changes to board policy 750 were in response to the toolkits we've received from PED. The changes in board policy 213 and 1003, which will be the last one, are for the implementation of legislation from the legislative session this year. The changes for 208 and 209 are actually kind of housekeeping ones. So if we can look at 213, I'm seeing on the board materials, it's page 92 is where the red line starts. So board policy 213 red line, page 1. These changes are intended to implement Senate Bill 345. And if the board recalls, the legislature made some changes in the per diem amounts that are allowed for meetings that are held that are virtual versus meetings that are held that are in person and last at least 4 hours. And so we're making a change to our per diem policy to clarify that board members shall receive the per diem that's specified in section 10.8.4. That's what that change does. And then I guess the net result of that is for virtual meetings, it's $45 a meeting. For in-person meetings that last for at least 4 hours, it's $95. And then if you scroll down to section D, still on page 92, there were some changes with how much is reimbursed for meals. And the Department of Administration is going to determine those amounts every fiscal year. So instead of adding and changing those every year, we're just proposing to say that the reimbursement is limited to the amounts that are determined by the Department of Administration every year. That's what that change is. Moving on to the last page, section F. The amount that is able to be advanced on a per diem is 80% of the value. And so it's just clarifying that. And then we added in the legal reference to 10.8.4 where the variation in amounts for the per diem is located. I stand for any questions.
I have a quick question. Okay, you might have to mute yourself, Lauren, because I sound like the board coming through. Review. Okay, there we go. I don't know why. So when it talks about in person, I'm just curious, like when we are meeting, when we're in the boardroom, is that still actually a virtual meeting, even though we're in the boardroom, but we're just broadcasting it? Or would that be in person because we're in person with each other, even though the public's not in? Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, Madam President, it does make sense. We haven't received clear guidance on that. My thinking about it is that if you attend a meeting in person, then that would count. Even if it's being broadcast, I think it would count. And we can get some more clarification on that, but I think that's the way that approach, because the idea with per diem is it's your time that's being expended to attend a meeting. Does that help?
Yeah, I was just curious. So thank you. Yeah, it does. Just as you were going through it, I was curious as to exactly how that would be defined. So okay, thank you. That does help. I appreciate it. Anything else from the board on that one? Any questions? Catherine, are you sure you don't have a question? You look like you have a question. You're muted, so I don't even know.
No, it's just more of something that I'm thinking like we should be meeting in person. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it besides this policy.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get back there again and again and again. Okay, you can continue on to, I guess we're at 208.
Yeah, we're on policy 208 now. I have this in the board materials as page 94. It's policy 208, red line page 1 is where it starts. And so this policy change 208 and 209 are really housekeeping and streamlining the board's policy on how meetings are to operate. And the purpose for doing it right now is that we're anticipating in the month of October that the board will consider its annual resolution for notice for its meetings. And we wanted to just kind of clean this up a little bit in preparation for drafting that resolution that you'll see in October. And so the first changes there you see in section B, just clarifying that I think when the Open Meetings Act was originally written, nobody anticipated that we would be able to meet like this. That the only opportunity would be that people would be able to attend by a telephone call. And so this is just to clarify that it includes telephonic or electronic participation with a conferencing platform like we're using here. And then there's a change in here. We add that it's only allowed in situations where it'd be difficult or impossible for a member to attend the meeting in person. That's straight from the Open Meetings Act. It's just a clarification there. And then also in circumstances where the board is authorized to meet virtually. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute, a little bit further down, because there are other times where the board is authorized to meet virtually. So if we scroll down to page 2, section D, this change here doesn't change the meaning in the first part of the paragraph. The Open Meetings Act requires that members of the public must be able to listen and observe the action of the board. To clarify that, it applies in all meetings. If you look in D1E, the staff is proposing that we continue to post it on the internet, the notice on the internet, which is where most people would go to get the notice. And then also to post only at the district office's main office at the front entrance. That's just a streamlining proposal. And then the other change here is, again, to be consistent with that. Now you're going to see this change in regular meetings. You're going to see it with special meetings coming up, and you're also going to see it with emergency meetings. So moving on to number 2, let's see, lose my spot here. Okay, so in number 2, the change clarifies that in conformity with the Open Meetings Act, that when that notices, in all notices that are open for the public, it just clarifies that. I'll have to explain why this change is necessary, but you don't every type of meeting that the board has doesn't actually require an agenda, because when you hold a meeting that is a executive session, you don't have an agenda. You explain in the notice what the purpose of the meeting is. Special board meetings down in E, it mirrors the changes to regular board meetings that the staff is proposing, that we only post on the internet and we post at the district main office at the front entrance. Same down in E3. I'm sorry, you follow me okay? You're okay.
Yeah, I think Noreen has a question real quick.
Okay.
Lauren, where are we currently posting our meetings?
Madam President, Secretary Scott, we're currently posting them at the district office, the main office at the entrance, and also at CNI, which is the area where the board meetings occur, and then also on the internet, which is always required.
Because I had this question earlier, I'm sorry, at the district office at the front, is there a television monitor that is put? I'm trying to picture the lobby right now, or are they posting it on the door?
Good question. Madam President, Member Cullen, we're actually posting them on the front window right now. It's in an area where, at both places, where they can just walk up and see it on the window. I think normally we would post it inside when it's in the district's main office, when people can just walk in whenever they want to. That's not necessarily the case right now because of the pandemic.
So why is it, so just streamline it, what is the issue with still posting it at the CNI building? Because that is electronic posting, correct? Because it's on their monitor. Or are they posting that on the door as well?
Madam President, Member Cullen, we're actually posting it on the window at both locations.
I keep saying door, yeah, window, sorry.
Yeah.
The difference right there.
Well, and Kim might be able to pipe in here. It's on the window.
Yeah, that's right. It's on the window in both places. But I really question how many people actually walk up and look at things on the window anymore. And we're legally required to post it only on the main office. So it's a streamlining measure, as Lauren mentioned.
This meets the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. I don't think this change reduces the likelihood that people would get notice of the meeting, because the reality is most people are going to check on the internet for it, and we're always going to post it there. And then in my thinking, the next place that they would check would be the main office for the district, and we're going to continue to post it there.
So I know that we have to at least put the minimum, but now that we have an app, is that posted in the app that we have to parents with the agendas in our board calendars, or like a calendar on the apps?
Madam President, Member Cullen, I don't know the answer to that. I know the app provides access to the website through an app modality. I think they can get to the board information that way, but I don't know the answer to that myself. Kim, do you happen to know?
I can give you a partial answer, and maybe Beth can chime in on this because she's more familiar with the app than I am. But all meetings of the board are posted on the district master calendar, which is on the home page of the website, and I believe also pulls through to the app. Beth, can you elaborate on that at all?
It's definitely in the calendar. I'm looking now to see if I can find the minutes, the link to that. But it might be something we can link right in that calendar invite, because there's places to add links, because we have the YouTube link there for the meetings. So it might be somewhere where we could link to the agenda. It just take me a little bit to figure out.
Yeah, since that's where mainly people are looking at, and even with websites, we're not necessarily going to websites anymore. You know, they go to social media and a lot of, you know, an app that might be more convenient than going to the website. So just what we've noticed over the years with people. So anyway, that was my thought on that. You don't have to put it in the policy, just a recommendation.
I think it would be quite easy to put the information on how people can get to the agenda in the calendar entry.
That sounds good. Are we all good with the streamlined, just putting it on the one door? I think that's fine. I have to say, one time in the middle of COVID, we had a meeting and I had to go post on the door because no one was at the district office. And so I told Jane I'd just go down and post it. So I went down with my tape and my paper and posted it to the door. All right, go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, so that's page 3. I think we're on to page 4 now. You'll see the same changes there, the streamlining changes to the posting requirements on page 4. And then on page 5, where we're talking about executive sessions, it says in here that we would post an agenda, but we actually don't. You actually don't do an agenda for an executive session. What you do is you provide a description in the notice about what is going to be discussed. And that's for a meeting that's called outside of outside of an open meeting. In an open meeting, you can call an executive session on something that's already on the agenda. So, So just clarifying what the practice is in conformity with the Open Meetings Act. And then item C there on the same page, on page 5, just making sure that it's clear that the meeting minutes of the next open meeting will have a statement in there about why it was closed and what was discussed. Okay, moving on to page 6. I think there was a numbering change there. We had a 3 and it should be an E. And then starting with section H, this is just a reworking of the state of emergency provisions that we added last year that allowed for virtual meetings in conformity with the guidance given by the Attorney General. That guidance is still in effect, and this just streamlines the way that it works. There is one difference here, or maybe it's 2 differences really. We anticipate that there might be situations where there's a state of emergency where we would want to hold electronic a virtual meeting, and it's authorized through an order of the governor, which is what it said before, or other appropriate state authority. But then we also added the New Mexico Public Education Department, because actually in the toolkit that we have now, it allows for virtual meetings for school boards. And so we were just adding that in to make sure that that's clear. And then the other changes they're not substantive changes. They just kind of restate what the requirements are and actually shift a couple things around, but still includes them. I know there's a lot of crossed out stuff here, but it's really just moving stuff around and rewording it. Any questions about that?
Looks good.
And then the last change is on page 8. This is talking about preparing the schedule of regular board meetings, and then clarifying where we're going to post that on the website, and then we're going to put it at the entrance to the main office. Again, it's that streamlining proposal. With that, I stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions from anyone? No, I think we're good.
So that moves us on to 209. I have the red line. Let's see. I'm just scrolling here. Okay, so I have it starting on board materials, page 112, red line of policy 209. On page 1, it's just capitalizing the board. On page 2, the changes here conform with what we currently do with our board agendas. For instance, adding the introductory comments by the superintendent in the proper order with public comment, and then reports, and then in relation to the consent agenda, and then the beginning of business, and then the things that are included in business. So really just conforming changes to what we're currently doing. And again, a capitalization of board. Any questions on that?
I think it looks good. Any questions?
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll move on to 1003. And I've got that beginning on board materials, page 119. The changes to this policy are in order to enact Senate Bill 272, which allows for the early enrollment of children in military families who get assignments in the state of New Mexico. And it also changes the priority in which they're admitted. So essentially it makes them, it adds them to the first priority. And we can register them up to 45 days before that they are physically present in the state. And that's what the changes on page 1 do. And then renumbers the other priorities. Oh, it also takes out number 2. You see those number 2 struck out. There was a priority allowed for students that were in failing schools, and that's been removed from the statute. And then the other priorities are just renumbered. It doesn't make any changes there. Starting on page 2, we make just some changes in terminology to make it consistent and read better. And then the last substantive change is actually on page 3, which is also it's section H, which is also related to the implementation of Senate Bill 272, and just provides what the district has to do to ensure that students from military families, what they have to provide to the district, and what the timeframes are. So we've added that in. It's virtually word for word from the statute. And then conforming changes. And then we added a legal reference on page 4, just to the Open Enrollment Act, which is 2214. Any questions on these policy changes?
Any questions? We also have Sherry Carver on to help. Okay. I think we're good.
Okay.
There's some more, I'm sorry, Lauren, there's going to be some more policies that we're going to be going through here too.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Not on this agenda, but there's several other bills that we're in the process of implementing that will have policy changes that we'll have to bring to the board for consideration and approval.
Okay. So will these be on our next agenda, or is that the plan for our second reading? We're good to.
I think the plan is to add these for the second reading next time, and then I guess depending on how full the agenda is, maybe folding in some more.
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you for going through all these. I thought all the changes were good. And of course, a lot of it is just necessary changes with the state statute. So we appreciate you getting them on though for us. Anything else from the board on that? Yeah, thank you. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything on any of the policies before we end our meeting?
No, they've covered them very well. We've talked about them, discussed them. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lauren, again for going through all those. And everyone, I know, as we had Sherry on here for a second, and everyone's really helped in putting those together, I know. So thank you for doing that. Okay. So with that, we'll go into our advanced planning then. September 16th, 2021, we have an audit committee open meeting and executive session at 4:30 p.m. and that will be virtual. September 27th, 2021 is a regular board meeting at 5:30. That will be in the boardroom and also broadcast. October 7th, 2021 staff in-service day. October 8th, fall break. It's Blue Fiesta time. October 11th, regular board meeting at 5:30. The 13th of October will be our region's fall regional meeting, and that will be announced. And let's see, on the 25th, we have a regular board meeting at 5:30. And then November 2nd, we have, there will be local elections. Along with that, there will be some school board election going on with that on November 2nd. So just kind of drawing attention to that, we have down, so September 27th, is that our plan to go back into the boardroom on the 27th? Is everyone, am I understanding that right? Kim, was that your plan for the 27th?
Not necessarily. It's just the way that that was worded. And I think that's up to you all.
Okay.
And we're seeing so many of the meetings now being open back up. And I think that, at least my opinion, that's what we should be doing.
Okay. Other board members, any thoughts on that? Or Dr. Cleveland? Okay.
I am totally comfortable being back in person.
Okay. Okay. Just kind of pay attention to your email and stuff, and that will we'll just to make sure, or we'll make sure we send out a text just to make sure we're all on the same page. We've kind of, it's been hard going back and forth with it, with everything. Yes, Noreen Scott.
I just was going to say that I potentially am not going to be at the audit committee meeting on Thursday. I have a conflicting appointment, and I've already notified Kim.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else on advanced planning from anyone? Okay. All right. So with that, thank you, everyone. It's been a long night, but I think we've had some really good discussions tonight. So I appreciate everyone being here. And with that, our meeting for tonight is adjourned. Thank you.